The couple was heading home at full speed, dying to get lucky, when out of nowhere a maniac shows up running at the speed of a bullet train. He blew past the car like it was nothing, and left everyone eating dust. People had no idea what was going on, watching some dude running like Sonic in the middle of the street. The police set up a blockade and managed to stop the maniac. When an officer fired a taser at him, the guy simply caught the shot with his fingertips. They even hit him with the full shock, but the wild-haired dude fired back, sending everyone flying. And the special forces started rolling in. Helicopters, war tanks, the wanted level shot up just like in GTA San Andreas. All of that for one guy in a hospital gown. On top of running insanely fast, the guy started climbing buildings. At the top, with helicopters surrounding him and soldiers from other rooftops aiming right at him, the guy just rips off his shirt, grabs a broom handle, and tells everyone to come at him. I know what you're thinking. What kind of man is this? This is Ryugim, and he is not from this century. 1,000 years ago, he was an absolutely broken warrior. He took on 300 assassins by himself for 4 days straight, shielding his woman with his own body. In the end, he and his arch-enemy Awakens fought to the death and fell off the cliff together, straight into freezing water. Nowadays, people lost their minds, seeing a giant block of ice floating in the ocean. Inside that ice there was a person. And no, it's not Captain America, it's our protagonist, perfectly intact after 1,000 years. The government got their hands on him and tried to turn him into a lab rat to run a bunch of tests, but our guy bounced. That's how we get to this scene with everyone hunting the guy. The president of South Korea, Kang Ji-kwan, decides to go there himself. He orders the soldiers to lower their weapons and introduces himself as the leader of the country. He explains that they're in the future and reaches out his hand to greet him. Ryugim swings the broom right past the president's head just to test if any of this was an illusion or reality. The president nearly got launched into the sky and almost messed his pants. Back in the past, there was a woman named Yun Sheng who was a specialist in mental attacks. So our guy thought he was caught in a genjutsu. Now that he sees everything is real, he gives up fighting. At the president's secret base, they prepare a full-on feast for Ryugim. The two have a conversation, and the president explains that modern medicine managed to unfreeze him just fine. In exchange for support in this new era, he asks for only one thing: cooperation. The government wanted to study how the guy survived centuries frozen solid and use that to benefit humanity. The president had to feed the public a lie, saying that the giant block of ice, the maniac running in the streets and jumping off buildings, was all footage from a movie, that none of it was real. All of that to keep the truth hidden about the frozen man. Any country would commit atrocities to get that kind of power in their hands. Since he has no interest in being anyone's lab rat, our guy simply says no and walks out. The guards try to hold him back while soldiers fire tranquilizer darts right into his back. But Ryugim is always one step ahead. He covers his body with a layer of aura that stops anything from touching him. With an absolutely absurd level of power, he sends everyone around him flying. The president stands there in shock watching that unstoppable monster. Several guards start surrounding the guy, cutting off every exit. When one of them attacks from behind, he actually thinks he got him, but our guy simply turns to smoke right in front of him and walks straight through the guards, dodging every single attack without even trying. The guards have no idea what just happened, and neither does the president. No one knows why, but he's standing in plain sight on top of the tallest building. It looks like Chokru is about to jump and end his life. This world gives him nothing. Without a purpose, his life feels empty. He only lived to protect his mistress. Now there's no mistress left, and no enemy left to fight, so he sees no reason to exist. He wishes he had died when he fell from that cliff long ago. As he starts to fall, something catches his eye. A face on a billboard stops him cold. It looks exactly like Awakens, his final enemy. Chokru's eyes widen, and his mind flashes back to his battle with Awakens, the monster who trapped his family in an illusion and made them kill each other in front of him. Bunhai and Awakens worked together to bring destruction down on Goryeo. Back then, the bodyguard faced him with pure determination, while Awakens enjoyed tormenting him and vowed to crush the world. To Chokru, that man caused everything. He was sure he'd killed him in their last fight, but somehow that bastard seems alive in the future. That changes Ryugim's whole view of things. If his enemy still exists, then so does his reason to live. He throws his hands toward the ground, releases a massive force, breaks his fall, and lands on his feet. There was too much he still didn't understand, and now he was set on learning the truth. Back at the Blue House, President Jakun nearly loses it after hearing that the ancient warrior jumped from the tallest building around. What scares him even more is that no body was found. Luckily, they found a witness who met him afterward. According to that person, he only asked for information on Yeonwoo. In this world, Yeonwoo is a huge name. He's one of Korea's biggest stars, famous around the world for his talent since he was young. People across other countries watch him closely, and with model-level looks and natural charm, he draws everyone in. Just having him around raises his company's stock and boosts Korea's image worldwide. Put simply, he's seen as an ideal man, which is not at all what Ryugim expected to hear. Instead, he feels even more out of place, because Okyun's identity now seems like the total opposite of the man he remembers. So Ryuji sees two options. Either this star only looks like Okyun, or he really is him, and has fooled the whole world. And strangely enough, Ryuji wants the second one to be true. Wanting to meet him at once, he asks a kid to take him to Yeonwoo. To any normal kid, that's a crazy request. There's no way he can just reach a celebrity. The kid can only stare, thinking this guy has to be insane. Then things get worse. Ryuji loses patience, and releases so much pressure, that every screen nearby shatters. He demands a way to find Yeonwoo. Terrified, the kid blurts out that the star went overseas a few years ago. Ryuji realizes his target is already in another country. That takes us to America. There, the model is having lunch, when he suddenly gets smacked in the face by a huge man. The guy yells at him in English, telling him to get out. But it's only a movie scene they're filming, so nobody is actually fighting. The director is annoyed because Yeonwoo hasn't been in top form lately, and it's slowing down the shoot. Trying to make up for it, Yeonwoo, even with his face already swollen, asks the actor to hit the other side too so they can redo the scene. Then a chandelier suddenly breaks loose. It crashes down without warning, and the big actor would be done for if it hit him. Yeonwoo dives in just in time and saves his life. The staff rushes over to check them both. No one expected that accident, but thankfully they're alive and the actor is fine. Yeonwoo isn't so lucky. His arm takes the worst of it. At the hospital, everyone is shocked that he hurt himself that badly, just to protect someone else. People send him piles of gifts for his brave act, but Yeonwoo wants to share them with the hospital staff. He also apologizes for delaying filming, though everyone is just relieved his injuries weren't worse. Then Yeonwoo realizes filming doesn't matter much after hearing some shocking news. Back at the Blue House, President Ji-kan says goodbye to the others, then finds the ancient warrior waiting for him, after slipping past top-level security with ease. Ji-kan still remembers how shaken he was, because only 9 hours earlier that same man had appeared in his office out of nowhere. This time, he comes to accept the cooperation offer he rejected before, but with one condition. He hands over a photo of Yeonwoo, and asks the president to find someone trustworthy, who can put him in the same room as the star. Ji-kan agrees to anything, as long as full cooperation comes in return. Ryuji notes that handshakes as a sign of trust didn't exist in his time, but he takes the president's hand anyway. Back in the present, Ji-kan learns that Ryuji urgently wants to see Yeonwoo, though reaching him from so far away won't be easy. Still, they manage to arrive where Yeonwoo is staying. The model is stunned to see the president and the man beside him. Yeonwoo politely introduces himself, while Ryuji stays tense, ready to find out if this is really Okyum. Kwon mentions that Yeonwoo recently sprained his arm, and Ryuji steps forward to greet him with an outstretched hand. The celebrity is startled to realize this is the same man from the news, standing right in front of him. They shake hands, and Jae-kan suggests they sit somewhere more comfortable. But what really matters is this. Ryugi is squeezing Yeonwoo's hand with crushing force. To his surprise, he senses no trace of chi at all. Yeonwoo feels completely human. Disappointed, Ryugi apologizes for barging in. Jae-kan tells them to make themselves comfortable while he steps out for the bathroom, but that's just an excuse. His men are already waiting nearby in case anything happens. Soon, everyone leaves the room, and only the two of them stay behind at the table. Even with tea in front of him, Ryugi feels crushed. He realizes this man only looks like Okyun, so maybe he really is alone in this world. Then Yeonwoo suddenly says Ryugi's name. He leans in close and whispers, shocked that he's still alive. Yeonwoo can't believe the bodyguard he thought was dead is standing here. Ryugi nearly attacks on the spot, letting out a fierce aura as a warning. He demands to know if this was all some kind of game. So Yeonwoo was never real, it was always Okyun underneath, which means only one thing. Okyun must have learned a way to hide his chi, and Ryugi wonders how he reached this future before him. Okyun calmly says killing him here would mean nothing, so he should put away that killing intent. He points out that Ryugi is still getting used to this world, while he has already blended into it. Ryugi presses him, asking how he came to the future, but Okyun keeps that to himself. Then Ryugi asks about the one person he cares about most. Did the girl he was sworn to protect come to the future too? But Okyun decides to play with him. Instead of answering straight, he gives a vague reply, like a riddle. Fed up, Ryugi slams pressure into the table, sending Okyun and his chair flying back. It's clear Okyun won't cooperate, so Ryugi decides to get the truth himself. He glares down at Okyun as the other man rises from the wreckage, almost like he's remembering their past life together. But that last hit seems to make Okyun more confident, like he can tell Ryugi still hasn't recovered his full power. Just before they start fighting, Okyun warns him about the illusion barrier around them. To everyone else, it'll look like two old friends catching up instead of tearing the place apart. Okyun rushes in, but Ryugi instantly says something's wrong. He wasn't fighting Okyun at all. He crushes a pine cone in his hand, and says he'll uncover the truth himself. He explains that even though the enemy hid their chi at first, some leaked out while blocking his attack. That was enough for Ryugi to know this wasn't Okyun. The fake Yunwoo drops the disguise and turns back into a woman. She's impressed he figured it out after just one meeting. It's Yoonji. The story jumps back to the last day of the rebellion. When Ryugyam clearly saw Yoonji fall after being cut down, he was sure she died, so seeing her now makes no sense. Yunwoo laughs at his confusion, and says the real Okyeom now holds an important place in this world. She only used Yunwoo's identity because her master was busy with other meetings, and now she can't wait to report Ryugyam's return to Okyeom. After testing his strength, she thinks beating him here will be easy, so she creates clones and sends them all at him. Big mistake. Ryugyam cuts one down without trouble. He's done listening to her talk and tells her to shut up. Still, he's been burning through a lot of chi, and since he only recently awakened, that should wear him down. But that thought is exactly where Yunsheng goes wrong. Ryugyam isn't normal. With one strike, he wipes out all of her clones. Now she's on the ground, too weak to stand against him. Ryugyam remembers killing her back then. She fell off a cliff with a wound no one should survive, so her being here is hard to believe. Yunsheng admits she also thought she would die that day. But when she opened her eyes, she was in the future. There, a gray-haired man in a suit stood before her. It was Okuyun Jurt, already helping her adjust to this world. That means Okuyun woke up before the rest, and as her superior, Yunsheng refuses to give up. She nearly reaches Ryugyam's eye with a sharp stab, but he blocks it in time and blasts her away. Yunsheng can barely keep fighting as Ryugyam walks toward her and says it's pathetic that she thinks Okyeon saved her life. She says she's only been here a month, but Ryugyam focuses on something else. When did her body start rotting? She has no idea why he asks, so he tears her shirt open and reveals decayed flesh underneath. He tells her Okyeon never saved her, he just used a spell to keep her alive a little longer. Once she's useless, she'll die anyway. Yunsheng loses it at those words, shouting that he's talking nonsense. Ryugyam knows she's never heard of this technique, but to him the answer is obvious. She's nothing more than one of Okyeon's tools. He even says the reason she's stuck doing this kind of small work is because that's all she's worth to Okyeon. That hits Yunsheng hard. She's horrified to realize she may die soon. But Ryugyam says there is one way to survive, and only he knows it. To save her, he must use a different kind of chi, and he proves it by sending his own chi into her to slow the decay. That confirms it for Yunsheng. Her master planned to throw her away. Ryugyam says only he or Okyeon can use this method, so now she has to choose a side. Knowing she has no other path, Yunsheng quietly admits that she wants to live, and asks Ryugyam for orders. He tells her to become a double agent. In the next moment, Yunwoo bursts out the door, begging to be saved from Ryugyam. He warns the president, and says they need to leave right now, leaving everyone confused. The president panics at the thought of a dangerous man inside, and wonders what happened. When they enter, they find Ryugyam in a room that's been completely wrecked. He apologizes for the damage and says he'll make up for it, however he can. His excuse is that he was just testing something. The president brushes that aside, and asks if Ryugyam is mentally okay. They're worried about Yunsheng too, and ask if he's hurt. While Yunsheng is annoyed that Ryugyam is acting this wild in front of them. His acting is seriously that good. Still, he plans to speak with Yunsheng again soon about what to do concerning Okyeon. Then the story shifts to the past, when the young swordsman was taught his only duty. He was meant to draw his sword to protect those important to him. A bodyguard had to protect them even at the cost of his own life. He was always told that his life mattered less than the one he served. But because bodyguards lived for someone else, they had strong wills and refused to die easily. Ryugyam wakes up in the lab, and the researchers go on alert when they see his condition suddenly getting worse. He says he's fine and asks how much longer the research will last, but the president tells him to rest and continue another time if needed. Ryugyam agrees to pause the research for now because he has to keep an important promise. In the next scene, Yun Xiaobei meets Ryugyam and says he showed up later than she expected. She notices someone is following him, but doesn't mind when she realizes it's just one of the president's men. They sit down to talk over food, though Yunsheng is surprised by how casually he orders so many drinks on her tab. Ryugyam tells her to stay quiet. He's the one asking questions. He starts by bringing up Okyeon's past, and how he tricked him in their final clash. Okyeon belonged to the family. Ryugyam was assigned to protect. Everyone thought he died in an incident, but he had faked it to prepare a rebellion. Yunsheng says Okyeon always kept secrets and she only followed his orders. Since she can't explain much more, Ryugyam asks if anyone else from the past came to the future. As far as she knows, it's only Yunxiao, Okyeon and Ryugyam. She even searched through records for others, but found nothing. Ryugyam then learns that Okyeon is overseas right now. Yunxiao doesn't like that he plans to meet him in his current state, especially since Okyeon is much stronger than before. Ryugyam suddenly cuts her off, not because he's bored, but because he sees something that shocks him. The real Yeonwoo, or rather, the real Okyeon, is outside the restaurant, staring right at them. A smile spreads across Okyeon's face as he realizes things just got a lot more interesting. Ryugyam stands up and calls the whole meeting pointless. Then he says her role needs stricter terms. After seeing that man with his own eyes, something important wakes up inside Ryugam. He'd been so focused on revenge that he forgot the one thing that mattered most. He tells Yunqing he's sure the girl he was meant to protect is still alive. To Yunqi, that sounds crazy after all the records she already checked. But his master's words echo in his head. His only duty was to protect the person placed in his care. So before anything else he's going to find his lady. Yunqi warns him that won't be easy when he can't even remember her face. But this guy is built different, because he grabs a pencil and starts drawing her from memory, down to the smallest details. After serving her his whole life, he thinks it should be simple, until he shows the sketch, and yeah, it's terrible. The story then shifts to Soon. Her friend is annoyed that she went off without her. She's also the same girl from the start who wanted to end her life. At school, Soon is basically a celebrity. She even has a fan club packed with losers who think they actually have a shot with her. Because of those creeps, her friend is worried. At the same time, she's also a little jealous of all the attention Soon gets. While they talk, Ryugam and Yunqing spot the two girls from afar. Yunqing is still amazed by smartphones, calling them a huge ocean of information. Ryugam is glad they're making progress. He thought it might take a whole year to get this far. He tells Yunqing to stay quiet since they're only here to watch. Then suddenly, a group of creeps surrounds the girls. They're desperate for Soon's attention, and even demand a hug like she owes them one. The way they close in leaves Soon horrified, while the two gross idiots act like being her fans means she has to reward them. Ryugam and Yunqing watch from a distance and realize they'll need to step in soon, and this is where we learn more about his lady. The first word he uses for her is dandelion, because of how pure she was. She was small, gentle, and always crying, even though she came from a rich family. Whenever she got sick, it was serious. She was the kind of person who needed someone by her side to stay safe. Ryugam jumps in just as one of the creeps tries to grab Soon. Yunqing keeps an eye on Soon's friend. And if you thought Soon was Ryugam's lady, nope, it's the friend. And she wasn't weak, not before, and not now. She was his master. Ryugam walks over to her, and she steps toward him. He apologizes for arriving too late to protect her, then offers his jacket against the cold. After one look, Ryugam is certain it's her. But then, to his shock, the girl rushes in and slams an uppercut into his stomach. Ryugam never saw that coming, and honestly, neither did I. She's no helpless victim, she's dangerous. Smiling, she says it's been a long time. Turns out she thought he was just another fan. That crushes him because she doesn't remember him at all. She doesn't even have the same name anymore. Confused, the girl asks if he's actually a fan of Soon instead. Ryugam is shaken because it's not only her memories that are different, her whole personality is too. The person in front of him feels completely different. Then the girl lowers her head, embarrassed that she punched him for no reason. A few classmates run over to protect Soon and her friend, thinking Ryugam was bothering them. But right now, he doesn't care about any of that. All he can think about is the painful truth that this child isn't his master. The others leave with Soon, but the girl keeps thinking about the man still standing there, with that sad look on his face. From that brief meeting, she can tell he's lived through something awful. The next morning, Ryugam and Yunqing go to the tomb, where his lady is said to be buried. Yunqing thinks it looks plain, but figures that's just because so much time has passed. They also verify everything with the president's top historian. After checking several sources, they learn Ryugam's lady died on the day of the rebellion. Her last belongings were placed in the tomb. Yunqing stays calm, but Ryugam is devastated. He even punches the ground in frustration. The last moments keep replaying in his head. Okion beat him by cutting him off from the one mission that mattered. He broke the rule of his life and failed the purpose he lived for. Standing before her tomb, he's crushed by the thought that he let her down. It's brutal, like giving your whole life to one duty, only to learn it meant nothing in the end. Now that her death is confirmed, they focus on the girl from before, the one with the same face as his master. Back at the school, the girl is surprised she's the only worker left. Her drunk boss is just lying around, looking totally miserable. This lazy idiot even tells her to make him ramen like, that's part of the job. She's mad that he's giving her chores when she's supposed to become famous someday. Annoyed by her complaining, he finally gets up to cook it himself. Her interview is playing on TV, and he tells her to hold on just a little longer. Then he gets a phone call, and suddenly lights up. After hanging up, he tells Min Daril the good news. He got her a drama meeting with a great production company. Daril's eyes shine right away. This could be the chance she's been waiting for. Since they've been invited, Daril goes to the meeting, but the location makes her uneasy because it doesn't feel right for a girl her age. Still, she brushes it off as some company issue. Then the men there ask her to take a drink, which catches her off guard. She reminds them she's underage, so she can't. The place doesn't feel like an interview at all. It's messy, unprofessional, and the two men are acting drunk and weird. They tell her to relax since this is only an intro meeting, not the real one. She tries to go along with it, but the second one of those creeps puts his hands on her. She understands she's in serious danger. In that moment, she sees exactly where this is heading. So she stands up and says she won't sell herself for anything, not even for a whole building. But it doesn't matter, because right after that she collapses from the drug mixed into her water. Unable to move on the floor, she realizes they tricked her by spiking the drink. As for Shideoke, he's gotten so desperate from his own misery that he'd do anything now. With Dyula unconscious, one man says they should use her dream to help themselves. Then their leader calls, and they report that everything is going smoothly. Back at President Jaekunyu's place, Ryugeum looks up at the moon and says he has only one thing left now: revenge. He plans to destroy everything Okian built, and tear it all down, until both of them are truly dead this time. Late that night, Yunshi shows up and catches him by surprise. We also learn he's been giving her his chi every day. She came because she found something important, though it isn't about Okian, it's about the girl who looked like his lady. After getting curious about Dula, Yunshi started digging into her background. What she found is shocking. Just like Ryugeum's lady, the girl is from the Min family, which makes her a direct descendant of the person he failed to protect. After following her for a while, Yunshi learned the girl is in trouble and needs help. Even so, Ryugeum doesn't care about some descendant. He just turns and walks back inside, because to him she isn't his master. Yunshi gets annoyed after all the work she did to track the girl down. Then a sudden phone call comes in, and she realizes she has to move fast. Part of her thinks Ryuga should just leave the girl alone if he really feels nothing. Sitting there in silence, the broken man remembers the person he treasured most. He recalls all her different expressions, until the day the rebellion began. When he sensed danger coming for his lady, he told her to escape, but she asked one last thing of him. She wanted him to still be there for her whenever she looked back. That memory clashes with Dula in his mind, leaving him torn. He keeps telling himself the girl isn't his master. Dula should have nothing to do with him, so why care? He also thinks someone else must already be protecting her. Then we cut to this YouTube channel's next moment, where Nami takes in Baeksu as a new recruit applying to be a manager. To Baeksu's surprise, he gets the job on day one without even doing an interview. He doesn't care that Baeksu is new, and just sends him off. Then he remembers that, after Duel, Baeksu is the only worker left here. He's also prepared a surprise for her, and wonders how her meeting went. Then he gets a call from his boss, and the white-haired guy instantly loses it. He was only gone for a minute, but while he was in the bathroom, everything fell apart and the target got away. His dumb underling tried to touch her, and she beat the hell out of him. Now that she escaped, if she reports this, the police will be all over them. Still, the bowl-cut guy says she can't have gone far since the drugs are still affecting her. He's right. Dula can barely move and has to lean on the wall to keep going. Worse, she left her phone in the room, so calling the police isn't even an option. She can barely tell where she is in the hallway, and the men rush after her. She begs her legs to keep moving, knowing this is her only shot to survive. The second her hand touches the door handle, the men catch up and throw her back. The bowl-cut creep wants to hurt her, but she already looks broken. Even they're surprised she held out this long. Done thinking about it, they decide to drag her back. Then the floor starts trembling, and soon the whole building is shaking. Realizing it's a strong earthquake, Dula sees a chance. The lights go out, and in the dark she notices the door is open too. That's because our boy is already inside. Back at the president's home, he found a note from Kondoshao, and still can't figure out why he came all this way to save her. He could have ignored the girl, so even now he doesn't know why he showed up. In the end, Ryujimab decides the simple answer is that he wanted to do something good. He coldly tells them to let the girl go right now. The white-haired guy freezes, terrified and confused about where he came from. Meanwhile, the ground is still shaking, but Ryujimab casually throws him aside, sending him crashing into one thing after another before he hits the floor. Next is the bowl-cut guy, and with a deadly stare, Ryugim orders him to let go. Even he doesn't get why he's this angry. The bowl-cut punk bolts the second he sees what happened to the other guy. He runs all the way to his car and tries to escape, but Ryugim stops him. He reminds the scumbag that he never said he could leave. The bowl-cut guy crawls out of the car while Ryugim demands to know what they did to make the girl pass out, wondering if he should just kill him if he won't talk. One last time, he asks if they poisoned her, then shoves the car away with pure aura. Ryugim wants the antidote. Now if they did, the guy stammers that she was only drugged and should wake up soon. Ryugim doesn't buy that, and crushes the man's hand. Then he warns him, if he's lying, his neck is next. The bowl-cut guy is still lost when a group dressed like government agents shows up to stop things. They're actually a security team. They tell him to run while Ryugim checks on the girl, but their leader wants to take the child into their custody instead. They don't even introduce themselves. They just order Ryugim to hand her over or face force. Ryugim is ready for that, and tells them to go ahead and try. Recalling their first meeting and how he just saved her, Ryugim decides he should be the one responsible for her. He says he's the child's manager, even if it's only been one day. The bowl-cut punk calls his boss and finds out he was the one who sent the bodyguards to take over if things went wrong. But when he says they ran into Duel's manager, even his boss is caught off guard. Back with Ryugim and the guards, they demand proof that he's really connected to the girl. Instead, he tells them to prove they can be trusted before he hands Dula over. In his mind, these guys are suspicious, and he doesn't trust them at all. One of them makes a move, but Ryugim kicks him in the stomach and finishes with a palm strike that knocks him away. After dropping him, Ryugim briefly wonders if that was too much. The leader stops pretending to be polite and signals everyone to jump him. That doesn't help. Ryugim tears through them with one strike after another until he's the last one standing. As he starts to walk past what's left of the team, Ryugim feels something unexpected. The team leader steps up to fight him personally, and at last the girl wakes up. She doesn't recognize any of the security team, so he tells her to close her eyes for a moment and gathers power for one huge attack. In a single instant, the whole team is sent flying and dropped like bowling pins by Ryugim's explosive charge. The girl is left speechless. All she can do is admit that he's insanely strong. In the next scene, she's safely back with her boss, who realizes he made a huge mistake sending her alone with no one to protect her. He never thought this would happen, and got fooled just because the company had a big name. Even if she looks okay, it's obvious this shook her badly. What seemed like a good chance at first could have ended horribly for Duel. Her boss is furious and wants to go after the people who hurt her, but she calls out that reckless idea. There's no way he can fight a giant company. She wants to expose them too, but the truth is they're too weak right now. No matter how loudly they protest, they'd still lose. That's why she doesn't want him picking a pointless fight. She'd rather make them pay later, over time. For now, she says the important thing is thanking the person who helped them. She drags her boss over to the uninterested Ryugim and lets him do the talking. He wants to repay him, but Ryugim only seems to care about sweet drinks. The girl already likes him a lot because he's so strong, and she thinks he'd be perfect as a manager. They've met before too, so she jokes and asks if the girl he confused her with was as pretty as she is. Aside from that, her boss basically starts interviewing him and finds out he's almost unemployed. Dula is stunned by where this is going, but in the boss's eyes, the two of them seem like a perfect fit, so he offers Ryugim the manager job right on the spot. Later at school, Dula gets praised by Sihyun for joining a big production company, not knowing what really happened that night. Dula explains that it actually fell through. Feeling dizzy, she steps away and nervously asks for a favor, some trade secrets. That private request makes Sihyun hesitate a little, but she's too kind to refuse and agrees right away. She's ready to answer when a group of delinquent girls walks up and shoves them aside. This is the Gayu Neil gang, but Sihyun's personal managers are enough to scare them off before things get serious. Sihyun says moments like this are exactly why having a manager matters. To her, picking someone dependable matters more than picking someone strong. That word dependable makes Dula think of the man she just met. That night, Ryugim is looking over the city when Eun-yae arrives to attend him. He's pretty harsh, calling her out for always being late and even asking what kind of schedule keeps making her show up so late. Eun-yae won't answer that and asks why he called her here. He only wants to know what a celebrity manager does, and even she seems surprised by the question. Under his sharp stare, she explains that a manager checks on the celebrity, handles deals for them, and looks after them like a caretaker. Now that she's explained it, she wants to know why he asked. Ryugim tells her he got a new job as Mindula's manager. That shocks her, especially after he shut her down the other day. She even curses him for changing his mind, and says she knew this would happen. On top of that, he learns something interesting from the girl. Meanwhile, one of the emergency team members reports to his leader about the strange man, and admits he was the reason the mission failed. At the same time, Ryugim tells Eun-hye how he fought several men while saving the girl. From the start, he could tell they were different. Even after taking cheat attacks, they could still get back up. Back with their boss, he throws a punch so hard it sends the team leader into the wall, reminding them that they aren't ordinary humans either. Failing this mission is completely humiliating, especially when it's this important. Ryugim tells Eun-hye that people in this world shouldn't know chi at all. This is supposed to be a world without martial arts, yet he felt chi from those men. The emergency team's boss is now interested too, and wants to meet this mystery man himself. Eun-hye reacts strongly to what Ryugim says. She asks if he's serious, while he can't understand why she's so shaken. He starts to wonder if she knows something he doesn't. Eun-hye's eyes go wide. She freezes, remembering Okean said internal chi was gone. If that's true, this should be impossible, and it proves even more that Okean was using her. That takes her back to her meeting with the present-day Okean. She learned the world had changed a lot over those 800 years. People had lost one of the body's basic functions. Now this was a world where technology grew instead of martial arts. He even praised science's power. To him, chi simply wasn't needed anymore. In a world like this, but that only makes Eun-hye's long survival even stranger. Ryugim adds that what he felt wasn't ordinary chi, so his guess may still be off. That's why he wants to look into those men first. Then he jumps off the building right in front of her. He lands hard and walks off to uncover the truth, hiding in the dark. The next day, we're at Korea's top school. Yongjin High is backed by the government and runs more like a college, with all kinds of courses and programs. And this is where Dula goes. It's full of spoiled rich kids, like those 3 bully girls. Unlike them, Dula only got in by chance. Because of that, she gets bullied just for being there. They even drag Shuin into it, acting like she's not worth looking at. Dula talks back to So Shuing, but even though she wants to hit her, The boys in class only pile on more abuse. The whole class is against her, and she has no way out. Still, everyone's buzzing about the new transfer student coming today. The teacher walks in and tells everyone to sit down. Since the teacher has such high standards, they all expect a girl. But to everyone's surprise, especially Dula's, it's Choak Ryugyim, looking way too good in that uniform. Let's back up a bit to his meeting with the president. He asked to enter the school, saying he wanted to learn more about this world. The president handed the matter to the National Intelligence Service director. If his age wasn't a problem, he could enroll. So now he's in the class, and all the girls are instantly into him. Even the guys stare, thinking he looks like an actor or future celebrity. Dula cuts through the noise, introduces himself, and comments on Ryugyim's build. The reply he gets is ice cold. Ryugyim says he built that body by taking heads, in other words, cutting people down. And the nerd who told him about Yunyu before is also in this class. That kid is basically shaking, while Junyu laughs at Ryugyim for sounding like some anime guy. The poor boy looks terrified that he might actually wreck the whole school. Ryugyim glances over and spots Dula. She signals for him to come outside and talk. So he follows, and she questions why he's attending this school. She can't believe he got in so easily, and wants to know who he really is. But before he came here, Ryugyim was warned not to reveal his identity. He was fully coached for questions like this, so he gives the prepared answer. He says he entered through special admission, and that he's also her manager, basically a bodyguard. Since dangerous people are after her, he wants to stay close and keep the celebrity safe. That makes her uneasy. She tells him not to do that at school, or they'll both get in trouble, and says they should act like strangers here. Part of her still avoids the truth, because she doesn't feel like a real celebrity yet. She's left flustered, but Ryugyim disappears like Batman. Elsewhere, some bullies are shaking down a nerdy kid for lunch money. He refuses to hand it over, so he gets a brutal punch to the stomach for not obeying. The hit drops him. Janel rules the class like a tyrant, and everyone around him is scared. As Ryugyim walks over, he wonders what's happening. The reason he vanished earlier was simple. He sensed a trace of chi nearby. Now Janil has the kid on his knees, taking the money. The weak boy explains that Janil collects taxes from everyone. With his powerful family backing him, he treats the class like his own playground. The easiest word for him is king, and that word instantly sets Ryugyim off. He's disgusted that someone this pathetic calls himself that, but Janil and his crew hear every word. Ryugyim calmly apologizes for offending the king. Janil takes it as a challenge to his place on top. One of his goons thinks he's enough to deal with Ryugyim. Janil shoves that guy aside himself, then sticks out his jaw and dares Ryugyim to hit him. Bad move, die. Annoyed that Ryugyim is still acting tough, Janil pulls back his fist. The weak kid can't believe this is happening on the transfer student's first day. Right before the fight starts, the teacher steps in and ruins Janil's fun. He tells them to keep that kind of thing outside school. Janil warns Ryugyim that he'll make his life miserable from now on. He talks like he's about to destroy him. Ryugyim just looks confused. Later at lunch, Ryugyim asks to sit with a group of students. To his surprise, they all get up and leave. No one wants to be linked to him and end up on Janil's bad side. Since the table is empty, the weak kid asks if he can sit there instead. They eat together, and Ryugyim wonders why everyone is so scared of Janil. He really doesn't get it. The boy explains that Janil and his gang have marked him now, so school is about to become a nightmare. Janil pushes people until they have no choice but to leave school. That's why everyone is avoiding Ryugyim. But the kid also asks why Ryugyim didn't crush Janil, when he clearly could have. Then he brings up their first meeting. He says Ryugyim already seemed strange back then, and jokingly asks if he's some superhuman from another time, which is way too close to the truth. Before they can keep talking, a teacher calls for the new transfer student. In a separate room, the teacher asks him simple questions about Ryugyim, says the teachers aren't much help, and don't seem to live by strong morals the way people once did. But he already knows why he was really called here, so he tells Unhyori to stop pretending. She drops the fake act, and is shocked to hear he sensed traces of chi at school. Sadly, neither of them knows who that chi belongs to. That's why Ryugyim started trouble on purpose. He was trying to force someone there to use chi. It was a perfect chance, but the teacher interrupted it. Still, he's confirmed one thing. Martial chi still exists in this world. At the same time, Junil is beating the weak kid, which will make it even better when Ryugyim finally pays him back. Junil is ordered to take off his shirt and hit back. He barely taps Junil's shoulder. He's completely shaken. Junil mocks his terrified face, then slams him hard enough to jolt his whole body. The goons watch their leader play with his new victim, and they remember seeing Ryugyim talk to Junho in the cafeteria. That's why he's being punished. At this rate, Junho will be forced to take off his pants next. Then the boy with glasses from earlier rushes in to stop it. He's the class president, and after talking with Duel, he finally decides to act. Duel had been disappointed that he kept bowing to the bullies. That talk, he stayed quiet all this time to protect his future and keep life peaceful. But he's done staying silent. He suddenly charges at Junel like he's ready to take him down, but Ryugyim appears and blocks him. That confirms something for him. Then Ryugyim tears Junel down with words, saying he's no king, just a bastard. That insult makes Junul's men rush the transfer student. Ryugyim remembers his talk with the president. He was ordered not to cause trouble, and he gave his word. So he stays still and does nothing. He also remembers what Junho told him. Ryugyim had asked why Junho would get involved with someone already marked as trouble. Junho answered with a simple truth: the strong should protect the weak. That's what makes this moment so good. Even the kid who looks weak is strong in this setting, and he's helping Ryugyim with the one thing he struggles with most: adapting. Back to the fight. One of Junho's lackeys hurts his own hand trying to hit Ryugyim. A second later, Ryugyim flips him and slams him to the floor. It also makes him think about how his old self had weaknesses too. The whole class is stunned. He dropped 2 guys almost instantly. Then he turns to the cowardly Junho and asks if the so-called king is ready to show what he's got. Junho tenses up, then snaps completely. Like a madman, he charges in with a punch. But all that acting means nothing, because Ryugyim only flicks him in the forehead and sends him flying. Ryugyim doesn't even bother looking at him, and calls him pathetic too, an insult and a beating at the same time. Junho drops to the floor with a huge bump on his forehead. Ryugyim can already tell this guy doesn't deserve to be called king. If anything, the class president fits that title better. Thinking back to the Ryugyim realizes, the class president is holding back an absurd amount of power. Park Minguk is the one they were searching for, the source of those traces of martial chi. Staring hard at the new transfer student, Minguk asks what he's hiding. The other students can't make sense of what they're saying, but it definitely looks like Ryugyim caused another problem. Then Duel shows up and finds Junho and his crew all laid out. She has no idea what happened and notices the class president talking with Ryugyim. Ryugyim glances over and meets her eyes, then walks right past. After class, Shun and Duel talk about how strange it is that someone like him ended up at their school. Still, with a guy like that around, now Junho looks like a joke, but Ryugyim still plans to take control of his world again. Shun says Ryugyim feels different somehow. It's like he naturally makes people feel safe enough to get close, and it turns out since hiding it won't work anymore. Duel tells the truth, leaving Shun completely shaken, and Shun promises to keep it secret. Duel is glad she told her early. It also helps that her new manager has no experience, and neither does the future star, so weirdly they fit. Shun admits that meanwhile, Ryugyim thinks back on his talk with the class president. Minguk wouldn't answer anything until Ryugyim mentioned Qigong. Even then, Minguk looked totally confused. That proved one thing: he was throwing punches like normal, not realizing how much power was behind them. The strange questions made Minguk tense up, and the talk ended there. Ryugyim keeps remembering the energy in that punch, because something about it feels familiar. Anyway, Ryugyim gets called in for causing chaos on his first day. The school even wants to bring in his guardian. Ryugyim answers by calling the instructor shameful, and right then his so-called guardians arrive. They're the director of the National Intelligence Service and his men. Imagine showing up to a school meeting with the director as your representative. Since the government sponsors the school, they're clearly unhappy with how things were handled. He tells Ryugyim to leave the rest to him, which makes the instructor even more just. Like that, the matter is settled. Next, our favorite troublemaker shows up again. She brought Ryugyim what he asked for, a file with Minguk's records and all his personal details. From what she found, Minguk seems ordinary. If anything, he just looks serious about school. And that Qigong, because the kid has no parents. He only has an older brother. This case is harder than Ryugyim expected, so he starts wondering if the class president is tied to the security team. That also suggests Qigong really has almost vanished in this era. Even after searching for proof, he still can't figure out what they're hiding. Later, Minguk gets home and meets his brother, who asks if something happened at school. Minguk ignores him at first and keeps walking. Then he finally says he saw someone at school using a prostboy. The guy's a transfer student, and he crushed the bullies with that same power. Worse, he knows about their power too. His brother asks what the guy looks like, so Minguk describes Rai's Wukal with long hair. Then to Minguk's shock, his brother vanishes right in front of him. He immediately reports to his boss that he found the person they were looking for, and somehow that target is just a high school student. The boss is angry the mission failed before, especially because Minguk's brother wasn't there to make sure it worked. So this time, Section Chief Kim gets assigned to handle it, a job he's wanted for a while. And yes, that's Park Daehyun, the same guy who beat his own security team for losing to Ryugyim. After taking over the school, Ryugyim gives back all the money Janel collected as the class tax. Meanwhile, the embarrassed Janel starts wondering if the president is backing this guy, because otherwise, why would he act so boldly? That would make Ryugyim the school's new king, and everyone starts talking about him. After class, Junho says Ryugyim's presence alone made the school feel right again. Junho happily offers to help him with anything he needs at school from now on. But Ryugyim spots Minguk ahead, and says he'll get his answers from him instead. Minguk starts explaining how to sort the trash, while Ryugyim thinks it's a pointless routine, and the class president keeps wondering who this transfer student really is, especially since his brother vanished right after their last meeting. Minguk starts to think Ryugyim is trying to get close to him on purpose, but then Ryugyim says he's fine figuring out the rest by himself. The way he says it makes it sound like a fight could break out any second. Minguk goes on full alert, and when Ryugame grabs his shoulder, he's ready to strike. Then he realizes it's just Dula catching up to them. She's also starting to get suspicious about their private talks, so they brush it off by saying Minguk was just teaching trash sorting. Dula jokes that it's funny, all three of them got in through special admission, and says the two of them should become friends since they don't have many people to rely on. Later, Ryugame and Dula meet with the company boss. He called them in suddenly to offer a big chance. He looks completely stressed as he explains they've been given a job. A junior he knows is making a web drama, and since it needs a student role, Dula is perfect for it. The problem is the set is far away, so her manager has to drive, and of course Ryugame has no idea how. When they hand him the keys, he's completely lost, which is pretty funny. Dula tells the boss he's already become a noticeable guy at school, which is apparently a problem because they still haven't signed a real contract. So Dula says they should leave right away, and the boss gives them his card to cover expenses. Dula immediately starts enjoying herself and ignores his warning to keep spending low. She even reminds Ryugame he can't complain after eating 5 breads by himself. Then he changes the subject and says she seems close to Minguk, which she admits they've known each other since first grade as fellow special admission students. Special admission was meant for students with money problems, but even though it got them into the school, it also threw them into a miserable life there. Still, the class president stayed strong, helped by the example of his brother, who works in security. Dula gets a little annoyed that Ryugame keeps asking about Minguk instead of her. Ryugame turns away like he's falling asleep, but he's actually locked in on one word: security. When they reach the filming site, Ryugame finds out Dula doesn't want him following her around because he'd draw too much attention, so she tells him to rest in the crew bus instead. He does exactly that, sitting there quietly and thinking about the security men he fought before. That means Minguk definitely lied to him, and Minguk's brother Dae-san looks suspicious too. Then, right on cue, that same group of suited clowns shows up at the bus. Ryugame is glad he'll finally get a shot at meeting Dae-san. He tells them he won't break them if they just answer a few questions. The first one is about their real target. When nobody answers, he moves to a second question, asking about the stunt. But the team leader jumps in first and attacks Ryugame. He throws a punch and Ryugame catches it easily without even standing up. But that's exactly what the attacker wanted, because he pours out a huge amount of chi and launches a high-level move in that tight space. Even his own men think Ryugame might die from that. The leader tries to follow up with another blow, but Ryugame smashes him aside instead, leaving him slumped over unconscious. Ryugame has armed himself with something useful, figuring it's better than using just his fists. The rest start taking off their jackets like that'll help them. As the first one rushes in, Ryugame notes that their Qigong only comes out under certain triggers, so while beating them down, he also compares their power to Minguk's. But compared to the Qigong Ryugame knew from the past, this version feels like a weak knockoff, so he tears through them with no effort. After dropping every last one, he props them back in their seats like they're just asleep. Their Qigong was weak, but the man coming next is clearly different. The bus, Ryugame steps out and faces a man in a sharp black suit. Darhan is not happy. His whole team got wiped out in less than a minute. Ryugame asks straight up if he's Park Dahan. Then he drops a wild claim. He says he's the Park family's ancestor. The moment Tien hears that, he bursts out laughing. To him it sounds completely insane. Ryugame then brings up his younger brother Minguk, and that name makes Tien swing a pipe right at his head. Only after that does he ask who Ryugame really is. Ryugame catches the pipe and asks if Tien really wants to know that badly, since they're after the same thing anyway. They decide to settle it somewhere else, so they head to a quiet park. Once there, Tien gets serious and lets out a huge wave of chi. He wants answers, but he's made it clear he'll only listen if Ryugame loses. Both of them want the truth, so the winner gets everything, and the loser has to talk. Fed up with being looked down on, Tien charges first. His blow lands and sends Ryugame sliding back. Tien is surprised Ryugame kept up with that speed, and even gives him credit, but he's not done yet, using the walls like steps before diving down with a heavy flying kick. Tien can tell his opponent is reading every move, and for the first time he wonders if he's facing something way beyond normal. He still doesn't know who Ryugame is, but he's already thinking this man may be stronger than him. Knowing he can't hold back anymore, Tien draws out his Qigong completely. Then he takes a stance that shocks Ryugame. It's the Silent Tiger Fist. The move creates crushing pressure, even when Ryugame blocks it. Then comes a second rush. Tien flashes in again, and tries to chain into a third strike. Ryugame avoids it, but the pressure still tears through trees in the park. Moving into the fourth part of the combo, Tien tries to finish it with one last decisive blow. But when he strikes, Ryugame is gone. The Silent Tiger Fist needs one key thing to be complete, and Ryugame shows it: perfect silence, hiding his presence like a predator behind its prey. He points out how badly Tien uses Qigong, and proves he could have ended the fight instantly. Just the first step of Ryugame's counter sends Tien flying and cracks the ground from the force. That was the moment the gap between them became obvious. Ryugeum then reveals he didn't even use the full sequence. Later, Dulo is shocked when they get a private car instead of taking the bus back. She has no clue what happened. The next morning, Ryugeum smacks Dihen awake. They're at the brother's house now, but Minguk isn't home. Dihen doesn't even remember passing out, but he still plans to keep his word and answer whatever he's asked. Ryugeum says he's already figured out several things on his own. First, Dihen's body doesn't naturally have qigong. That made him wonder how Dihen got those powers, until he found something in the house, a stash of pills. They don't look like the ones from the past, but they work the same way. Their job is to force qigong into the body, which explains why both Park brothers can use it. Ryugeum also realizes neither of them knows the most important part about those pills. That sets Dihen off, and he demands a plain answer. Ryugeum gives it to him fast. They could both die if this keeps going. Dihen can't accept that, and starts yelling in fear and anger. He still doesn't get what Ryugeum wants, until Ryugeum gives him one clear warning. If he really cares about Minguk, he needs to stay away from those rotten people. Then both of them feel a huge pressure from the door. It's unlike anything they've felt before, and it leaves Dihen shaken with fear. Meanwhile, reporters are lined up, waiting to interview the famous star Yeonwoo. Yeonwoo is surprised to spot Yeonwoo there. She greets him politely, and he says she looks good. Then, all at once, he traps them inside a barrier. His hand closes around her throat, as he demands to know how she's still alive. Tian is in real danger, and Yeonwoo tells her to take off her blazer. She's stunned that he noticed her healing state even after she removed Ryugeum's energy from her body. Yeonwoo studies her carefully, while Yunche can't understand how he sees through her so easily. Then, as if deciding she's suffered enough, he offers help. Instead of making things worse, he uses his own internal energy to heal her. After that, he tries to win her over, saying he never meant to throw her away. But he's caught off guard by the awful look on her face, because she's in terrible pain. As her body burns with it, Yeonwoo only smiles. The reporters never notice a thing because of the barrier, and the two of them leave. Later, Daehan keeps thinking about what Ryugeum told him. If his condition keeps getting worse, it could kill him, and that explains how he's been feeling. Now he wonders if the organization hid that truth on purpose. He's also unsure if Ryunching can really be trusted. When Minguk gets home from school, Dahan welcomes him, while still trying his best to protect his little brother. As Minguk brushes his teeth, he jokes that Dahan should stop staring at him like a creep. Then Dahan suddenly says they can't use the pills anymore, claiming the company stopped them and restricted them to organization members. Minguk hates hearing that because he wanted their power for an important evaluation. But Dian can't keep taking blind risks. Then Minguk suddenly gets a nosebleed, hinting at the awful cost of the pills. Dian panics and gets angry, telling him to take better care of himself. Minguk doesn't get why his brother is acting like this. To him, students get nosebleeds all the time. The story then cuts to the head of CK Shield, who's eating dinner while checking the newest version of their product. This formula is stronger than the last, and gives even better results. They even brought in skilled people to test it, and those same skilled fighters got crushed by a man who was barely hanging on. That's how powerful these Qigong pills are, and the company expects its value to soar even higher. This man is Joe Nile, the company's director. Doan is in the meeting too, shocked by what he sees. The director's body is steadily recovering, and sales keep rising. Buyers want more because one dose works right away. It looks like the kind of thing that could blow up in the medical world, and for now, they call it a vitamin injection. Everything is going just as planned. Then the boss tells Daihan to report on the man he was sent to deal with. Daihan only remembers getting completely beaten, so he freezes. But he can't admit that, so he lies and says he handled the guy privately. At least that buys him time. The boss tells him to return to his post, as the scene shifts to Minguk's side. Minguk is getting annoyed because Ryun keeps showing up around him all day. Ryun Cheng plays it off like it's all just coincidence. In truth, he's watching Minguk closely, but lately he hasn't sensed any chi from him. Then Ryuim looks outside and sees John Yul beating up John Yu again. He's taking out his anger on the kid over what Ryuim did to him. John Yu gets thrown down and reminded that this is the life he's stuck in. John Yul's lackeys just stand there as their boss keeps kicking John Yu. That stops when Dula shows up. They panic for a second because they think she's Ryuim. Then, meeting her eyes, John Yul walks over and raises his hand to slap her. Big mistake. Ryugeum steps in at once and stops him. Ryugeum is so scared of him that he leaves right away without looking back. Ryugeum tells Dula she was too reckless, and he still can't figure out why trouble always finds her. He's also had to change his priorities after learning about the pills. More serious things come first now, so he can't watch over her like before. Still, Ryugeum worries something could happen while he's away. That's why he misses the old allies he trusted with his life. Dula tells Junho to be more careful, because Juryudil and his crew will jump at any chance to shame him. As they leave, Ryugeum realizes something. He might be able to break Juryunil completely by humiliating him for good. So he tells Junho to beat Juryunil himself, which sounds almost impossible. Even so, Ryugeum stands by it and says this is the right way. Since he has no allies in this time, he's ready to share his power with the one person he trusts and build a new team. Back in elementary school, Joryuge was still the same nerdy kid, just a little bigger than the others. That was probably why bullies left him alone. If anything, he was the one picking on others. Then one day, a kid slapped his chubby friend and snatched his Steam Deck, refusing to give it back. The little punk even challenged Joryuge to fight for it in front of everyone. So over the next few days, Joryuge got ready for the first real fight of his life. He knew the whole school would be watching, and everything felt fine until the fight actually started. Then he got blasted in the chin by a brutal uppercut, sending his glasses flying. The hit rattled him so badly he could barely stay on his feet. Still, he somehow managed to steady himself, but inside he was already done. That first punch crushed all his confidence, and his whole body froze up. Fear hit so hard he could barely breathe. The other kids immediately started laughing. To them, he looked like a total joke. Even now, Joryuge sometimes thinks that day messed him up so badly, it even stopped him from growing taller. In the present, he wakes up looking totally confused. Daolei tells him he blacked out. Ryugeum explains that he opened one of Joryugeum's chi points. Joryuge asks if that's like the stuff from those cheap martial arts comics he reads. Daolei says she doesn't really get it either, but somehow, Ryugeum made him stronger. Ryugeum just smiles and tells Junho he's now strong enough to beat 100 men. Joryugeum actually buys it, saying he can feel power flowing through his body. Later that night, Daolei gets annoyed that Ryugeum followed her all the way home, and he calmly says he'll leave once she's safe. Then she asks where he's staying, and after hearing how far it is, she ends up walking him there instead. On the way, she buys him ice cream. One bite and he's completely amazed by this perfect dessert he's never had before. While he's enjoying it, she suddenly asks if he's hiding something. The way he talks and all that chi point stuff makes him sound like he's from another age. She almost figures it out, but before she can say more, an old woman shouts that girls shouldn't be out this late. Ryugeum turns at once, and the woman nearly jumps out of her skin when she realizes he's a guy. Irritated, she calls him ugly for wearing his hair that long. Ryugeum ignores that and senses something odd inside her bag. He politely asks to see her purse, which only makes him look more suspicious. The woman freaks out and starts yelling for help. Daolei quickly steps between them, before it gets worse. Before she can even explain, the woman grabs her purse and runs off like she's hiding something. Daolei asks Ryugeum why he scared her like that. He quietly says the woman was carrying something dangerous. With the drug hidden behind his back, he's shocked to see it's already spread this far. Back to Junho, he sits in his room, wondering if he really can beat bullies now. Then he checks his height, which hasn't changed since he was 8. Seeing that he's still the same, Junho convinces himself he can't win. Deep down, he's still that scared kid. The next morning at school, Daolei is surprised when Ryugeum shows up early. What shocks her more is his new haircut, and she laughs, asking if last night made him do it. He says no, it's just getting hot. Then he notes how clean the other classrooms look before everyone arrives. Daolei realizes he's really checking whether Junho will show up like he promised. Ryugeum says he can't be seen if he wants to test Junho's courage, and he's also making sure Daolei doesn't step in. So the two of them quietly watch Junho toss off his shoe. He orders a new chubby victim to crawl over and pick it up with his mouth like a dog. The class just watches, too scared to interfere because Junho rules the school whenever Ryugeum isn't around. Ryugeum asks Daolei if she thinks Junho will really fight back. She says that even if Junho trusts him, courage like that doesn't appear overnight. Right then, Junho storms in. Seeing Junho force the chubby kid to obey just to get his phone back, Junho grabs the shoe and throws it across the room, smashing Junho right in the face. Then he tells the bully to give the phone back like a good boy. Junil is stunned that this little nerd actually dared to do that. One lackey steps up and asks if Junil thinks Ryugeum will save him, or if he's lost his mind. Even though he's shaking all over, Junil says he came to put an end to Junil's rule, and even if he hasn't grown in 11 years, he's not the same coward anymore. Daolei can't believe timid little Junil actually stood up for himself. When she asks if he can really crush anyone like Ryugeum promised, he casually says no. Junho's chi point still hasn't awakened. Back with Junho, he steps up to face his first opponent, Kim. They both throw their hardest punch at the same time, and the whole class goes silent when Junho gets knocked flat by a heavy hook. Kim admits the nerd almost landed one earlier, but as someone used to fighting, he slips past it and drives a clean shot into Junho's liver. Then comes a punch to the face, leaving Junho wondering why he's the only one getting destroyed. Even Kim's friend tells him to calm down before he really injures the kid, but Kim keeps punching and kicking Junho anyway. That's when Junho realizes he was scared the whole time. As Kim looks down on him and gets ready to finish it, Daolei starts to panic. She demands to know why Ryugeum lied about making Junho stronger when he's clearly still weak. Ryugeum stays calm, and says fear and courage are opposites, but both start with believing in yourself. At that moment, Junho hits his limit, and awakens his true strength, turning that fear into courage. He rockets forward with a headbutt to the chin that drops the bigger guy on the spot. The whole class stares in shock at Junho's sudden burst of power, but Manga quickly points out it was mostly luck. It just happened to hit the chin. Even so, Junho calls for the next person to come get beat, but Junho answers with a savage kick straight to his face. After that, Junho tells his lackey to throw the trash out. To everyone's surprise, Junho slowly gets back up, ready to keep going. Without caring what happens to his body, he rushes straight at the school's top dog and eats a hard knee to the chest. Junho slams him into the lockers and starts pounding his face like a punching bag. He mocks Junho, asking if his brain stopped growing with his height, and if he forgot what happened in elementary school. The class watches in shock as Junho keeps beating and insulting him, trying to make sure he never stands up again. Then, Ryugeum steps in and stops the beating. He tells Junho that Junho isn't someone he can beat yet, but Junho rises with a grin and asks if all that chi point talk was just a lie. Every hit hurts like hell, but through that pain he learns something about himself. He tells Ryugeum to stay out of it. This is his fight. Taking his stance again, he shows he isn't done yet. Hearing that, Ryugeum smiles proudly and pats his shoulder. While Junho is still trying to process whether Junho is really challenging him, a punch smacks him right in the face. Junho slips past the counter and quickly thinks through his next move, but Junho calls him an idiot for taking him lightly, and drives a knee into Junho, leaving him barely upright. As Junho stands there dazed, Junho keeps swinging and kicks him back to the floor. Seeing him rise again, Junho admits he's impressed by how stubborn the kid is. That's when Junho realizes the power Ryugeum gave him lets him endure hit after hit. But he also knows toughness alone means nothing if he can't strike back. Junho jumps in to finish him, calling him a hopeless nerd who will never change. In that moment, Junho wishes he could fight like his favorite heroes, and pulls off a move straight out of one of his favorite comics. Ryugeum and Daolei both stare in total confusion as he suddenly strikes a dramatic pose, ready to settle what started 10 years ago. Junho yells that the nerd broke his nose, but Junho suddenly starts dropping him, with moves that look straight out of an action series. To end it, Junho grabs Junho by the head and slams him into the ground. The whole class can only stare, wondering if he really just beat the school's best fighter. And for the first time, Junho understands the strength was inside him all along. All he ever needed was faith in himself. Junho heads up to the roof, still holding his aching face. He scans the rooftop for whoever called him there. Then a voice from above stops him. Looking up, he spots Ryugeum, and instantly calls him master. Ryugeum asks why, confused, but Junho says it just feels right, and decides on the spot to follow him. Ryugeum drops down and circles him, studying him. He says what Junho used earlier looked like Chichi at first, but now it seems like something else. Xiaobei says he was only copying a move from a cheap manhwa, and Ryugeum jokes that it's basically this era's martial arts novel. Xiaobei should offers it horse. If his master only gave him that power for a short time, because he can already feel it fading. Seeing his face fall, Ryugeum asks why he's so gloomy after beating the bully. He should be happy. Xiaobei happy. Xiaobei admits he wants that kind of power forever. Ryugeum says he can have it if he helps him. Xiaobei's eyes widen. He can barely believe it. Meanwhile, Ryugeum knows he's making it up, since that kind of power doesn't really exist. Even so, Xiaobei eagerly agrees and proudly calls it a disciple's duty. Without another word, his so-called master jumps off the roof and tells him to follow. Xiaobei says Zhong Bao man, Jijimo Doldi Wichulong, Carmian had a trendol without planning. There is no way he can make that jump. So he runs for the stairs, already sure this training will be pure torture. The next morning, Daihan makes breakfast and yells for his brother to get up. Minguk doesn't respond at all. Annoyed, Daihan grumbles that he's basically raising a kid, then yanks off the blanket and goes still in shock. He quickly calls Ryugeum, desperately explaining the situation and saying he'll cooperate however he wants. Minguk now has the same curse marks as Unhai. His state is so bad he won't even wake up. He's drenched in sweat. With nowhere else to turn, Daihan begs for help and says Minguk is the only family he has. Ryugeum tells him to call a number he gives him, and promises to do everything he can. During the call, Ryugeum is trimming his hair, deciding long hair on men doesn't really fit this time anymore. After he hangs up, Xiaonil, the CK Shielder's doctor, gets a call from Chairman Zhonghua. Xiaobei Shat Oston Wan says things went wrong while he was handling Dula, and Xiaobei asks if that's the same girl he told his daughter to deal with. Just then, the chairman's daughter tells him to get back to golf. He stays on the call while taking his shot, and the doctor learns Park Daihan lied about already dealing with the girl. That's why Zhongwan now wants Gurai Yunil to step in himself. The redhead then reports that the new batch of 100,000 ampoules is ready and already being spread. He says they're highly addictive, which is why they've blown up so fast. The plan is to spread them across the world. Meanwhile, Daihan arrives at the Yongjin High Gym Hall. He senses someone nearby and looks around, but Yunshai suddenly appears and nearly scares him to death. Startled, Daihan asks if she's the one he called, and if she can really help. Yunshai answers by turning serious and releasing her chi. She warns him not to test her unless he wants to end up dancing naked. Daihan freezes. Even she can use chi, and now he's wondering who these people really are. Xiaobei grabs his collar to check the curse. then pauses when it feels strangely familiar. Dafan quickly knocks her hand away. He asks when Ryu Gayam is getting here, since he said he had something to finish. Right then, Ryu Gayam walks in and pulls back his hood. Both Dafan and Yunshi stare, shocked by his new haircut. Ryu Gayam says he was cutting his hair, and asks if he finally looks normal enough to fit into this era. Xiaobei asks why he suddenly cut it short, while Dafan snaps that he was wasting time on a haircut while his brother suffers. Ryu Gayam says he used to think he had no place in this generation, but now he knows that if he wants to face people like Ye Yunhu here and now, he has to understand this world first. Then he tells them a dangerous substance is about to spread everywhere, and he needs both of them to help stop it. Before they go, Ryugam asks Yunshinai if Yunhu has returned. She looks surprised and asks if he met him somewhere. Ryugam calmly says he only felt his energy. As usual, Daihan jumps in and asks if he knows whose energy that is, but Ryugam ignores him and tells them to move. Daihan says he only cares about saving his brother right now. Then Ryugam shocks him by saying he already looked at Minguk. From what he saw, Minguk may be past saving. He adds that something else has been mixed into the original curse. Daihan asks if another kind of ampule caused it, and Ryugam says they need to learn exactly what's in the new one before it's too late. Daikan finally admits he's heard about a new ampule being mass-produced, stronger effects, but much higher risk. He asks if finding it could save Minguk, and Ryugam notices he's starting to doubt him. So Ryugam says no hospital in the world can save Minguk. To ease his fears, he taps the spot where Daikan's mark was, and the cursed skin instantly turns normal. Daikan thanks him, now convinced his brother still has a chance, and the three of them sit down to plan. Yunshinai asks if Ryugam knows where to find the new ampule. He says that kind of information is hard to get, and only the ampules being shipped around leave any trail. When Yunshin suggests going after the higher-ups directly, Ryugam pulls out an ampule and says their real goal is to destroy it. He explains the higher-ups may just be working for someone above them. Daihan agrees it's too soon to go after them, and says he'll try to get information from the inside. Yunshin clearly doesn't like that idea. Then Daihan says there's still something he hasn't told them. What he reveals is so shocking that even Ryugam is stunned and has trouble believing it. The next day, the teacher gets annoyed when the class doesn't give the usual morning greeting, and asks where the class president is. A student says the prez is absent. That shocks everyone, since Minguk never misses school. Janel is absent too, and Junhoo wonders if he's too ashamed to show up after yesterday. Later on the rooftop, Dorel barges in and angrily asks Ryugam if he's hiding something about Minguk, because Minguk never stays home, not even when he's sick. Ryugam calmly says he doesn't know anything, but she calls him a liar. He asks if she's worried, then tells her Minguk will be back before she knows it. The last time Ryugam checked on Minguk, he used chi to steady his condition. It kept things from getting worse, but he couldn't wake him, and he knew Minguk might stay asleep for months. So when Ryugam says Minguk will return soon, Jush will get suspicious and tries to make him talk. Just then, he senses someone coming, and quickly covers her mouth, warning that someone is here. The door opens, and Siyun walks in looking for Duel. Duel tells Ryugam to relax because she's already told Siyun everything. He tenses up and asks what exactly she told her. Jush will hug Siyun and says they're best friends, so of course she told her. Then she gives Siyun a little push forward and tells her to greet him properly, since this is their first real meeting like this. Siyun starts to blush, and as Ryugam steps closer to speak, the story cuts back to when Dorihen shared that shocking news. He said his boss's real target was both Ryugam and Deklid, though Dekla was the first one marked, and he tried to stop it by filing a false report. Ryugam asks who his boss really is, and whether Dekla is truly being targeted. Dekla says he doesn't know for sure, but his boss owed someone a favor and couldn't refuse, even if it put someone in danger. He knows how terrible that sounds. Back in the present, Ryugam leans towards Sion and whispers in her ear. She goes from shy to shocked in an instant, and Dekla demands to know what he said. Instead of answering, Sion runs off like her life depends on it. Right after that, Untai arrives. Ryugam immediately asks if she learned anything about the boss Dekla mentioned. He asks if the man's last name is Choi. When Unhai confirms it, she's surprised he already knew. Ryugyam's eyes turn cold. Then Unhai asks if he remembers Choigyung from the old days. Ryugyam nods and says he remembers that beast well. Choigyung used to serve Yunwo back when he was Okyeon. Unhai continues her report, saying that same beast is now a chairman named Choigyung-won in this era. The scene shifts to Jung-won himself, lounging around while his stomach growls and barking at his men to bring him food before he loses his temper. On the way home, Dekla can't hold back anymore, and asks Ryugyam what he said to Siyun to make her run like that. He says she wouldn't believe it, but she keeps pushing, so he finally tells her the bullying she suffered was all because of Siyun. Dekla is left speechless. She questions him at first, but little by little, she realizes he's right, and the truth hits her hard. She runs ahead too upset to hide it, and says she'll go by herself from here. Dekla remembers sitting alone on the school stairs. That was when Siyun called her name for the first time and asked if they could be friends. Dekla warned her there was nothing to gain from being close to her, but Siyun said she just wanted them both to be happy. Back then it sounded completely real. As those memories come back, Dekla sees all the little moments they shared, eating lunch together, shopping for clothes, and singing their hearts out at karaoke. Then Siyun snaps back to the present and realizes how far she's fallen from what they had. As Siyun heads up the stairs, she remembers Ryugim calling out how much she hated Dekla, then cringes and facepalms. She wonders how her life turned into this mess, then quietly curses all of them. Elsewhere, Janil and Jongwon talk about what comes next. Their conversation is cut off by Jongwon's daughter. Jongwon asks Janil to leave them alone for a moment and apologizes to his daughter for what he's done. He tells her not to worry. Janil is handling it, and everything will be okay. At their hideout, Dekla says they don't have much time because the new drug is probably already spreading. Since his team wasn't told to handle delivery, he figures someone has started to suspect them. Even so, he says they can still get the pills. Not every Dekla uses a middleman. Some are done in secret, like street drug sales. Yunxing looks confused, so Ryugim asks how those secret sales work. Dekla says people usually use SNS and Telegram. When both of them stare blankly, he explains that Telegram is an app on a phone, but they still don't get it. That makes Dae's Han lose patience, and Yun Xiaobei tells him to explain it from the start. Instead he says they need someone who actually understands this stuff, and Ryugim instantly knows who that is. A dealer posts in a Telegram group about a new pill and calls it a vitamin shot. Yun Xiaobei quickly answers that he wants two, and the dealer tells him to wait at the last stop on the X line. So Yun Xiaobei sits quietly, telling himself his only job is to make sure the deal happens safely. He remembers Ryugim saying he'd show up after the exchange, but Yun Xiaobei still worries because these people are dangerous. The closer it gets, the more nervous he feels. Then, as the train nears the final stop, he suddenly needs the bathroom. Left alone in the car, Junho waits and wonders where the dealer is. The door swings open, and a thug steps in telling him to come over. Thinking that's the dealer, Junho notices the guy won't even look at him. Trying to stay cool, he walks up to hand over the money. But the thug pulls back at the last second to answer a call. Junho jumps as he hears the man say the deal is off, because the director gave the order. That one line makes his stomach sink. Right away, he knows something is wrong. The thug motions him closer. Junho's heart pounds as he wonders where his master is, then makes a run for it, hoping to buy time and survive. But the moment he enters the next car, his heart drops. Another man is there blocking the way, and now he's trapped. Then a familiar voice breaks the silence, and Junho freezes. It's Dae's Han, who calmly says he's an ally. Junho lets out a long breath, thinking he's safe now that Minguk's brother is here. That relief lasts only a second, because Dae's Han grabs him by the collar and asks the thugs if this brat was causing trouble. Then he slams Yun Xiaobei into the wall and scolds them, saying he was asleep in the next car and didn't know this was Team 2's trade spot. Yun Xiaobei is completely confused and can't tell who's on which side. Dae's Han turns to the thug and asks if he isn't even going to greet him, and the man quickly bows and apologizes. That weak response only annoys Dae's Han more. Meanwhile, Ryugim wanders through the subway like a lost kid, trying to figure out where he's supposed to go. Back in the train car, Dae's Han switches plans and tells the thug to hand over the new pill because he's short on time. The thug says Team 3 hasn't been cleared to get it yet. Dae's Han immediately plays it cool and starts fishing for more details. He says Team 3 will get theirs tomorrow anyway, so where is it being stored? The thugs hesitate, but Dae's Han keeps talking, saying they might as well study it now to save time later. The men start to ease up and almost talk, when both their phones buzz with a warning not to trust Team 3, especially their leader, Daeshan. Daeshan knows right away his cover is gone. Before they can move, he blasts both men across the car. Even while attacking, he apologizes and says he has a good reason for it. One thug blocks a punch and fights back, but Daeshan adjusts fast and takes control again. The other thug, seeing no other choice, injects himself with the upgraded drug. Daeshan instantly knows things just got serious. The thug smashes him into the rail hard enough to shake the train, then smirks and says he wasn't even trying. Daehan grins back and says Team 2's adaptability is impressive. As the other thug forces himself back up, he brags that even if they can't keep up with Team 1, they're still way above Team 3. Daehan is surprised to see him still standing, and the thug mocks Team 3 for being left out of the new pill. Then he lifts another syringe, but before he can use it, Daehan rushes in and crushes it in one move, trying to stop the fight from getting worse. He warns the thug not to look down on his team and charges again, but before he can finish it, the second thug grabs him from behind. He sneers at Daehan for being a weak leader. Daehan grits his teeth, breaks free, and drives a fast uppercut kick into the first thug's jaw. Without stopping, he flips into a clean bicycle kick. The second thug barely moves, which catches Daehan off guard, and one punch sends him crashing into the wall. Dio, watching nearby, blurts out that he can't believe someone like Daehan became a team leader, but Daehan snaps at him to run and hide in the next car. He takes a breath and tries to read the situation, knowing he has no drug boost to rely on. Both thugs inject themselves again and vanish from sight, then reappear behind him before he can react. They hit him hard and send him flying, and the beating keeps going until the windows shake and crack. But when they move in for the last hit, Daehan is still standing, his eyes faintly glowing. Too late, they realize he injected himself too. With a grin, he steps in and ends it with one crushing blow. Junyo stands there frozen, unable to believe the guy who was just on the floor is now the one left standing. That night in the mountains, Ryojom and the others keep the surviving thugs alive for questioning. Daehan sighs that he might lose his job if Ryojom keeps making messes like this, and Ryojom just shrugs, saying the subway was harder than expected. Junyo reminds him that he warned him before, but Ryojom ignored it. Then he asks if Daehan's job would be safer if they killed the thugs after getting answers, and Daehan nearly explodes, yelling that he's insane. Junyo asks if he should leave, but Ryojom tells him to stay and watch the questioning. Daehan says they need to move fast or the thugs' disappearance will make people suspicious and cause more problems. He adds that the men probably wouldn't talk even with a knife to their necks. Then Daehan smirks and says they have the perfect person for this. Right then, Yunqing shows up in a bold outfit and confidently sits on one thug's lap. She asks if she really has to do this in front of everyone. Ryojam tells her to get the info fast with her illusion spell. She smiles slyly, touches the thug's cheek, and tells him they're about to have some fun. In his head, the man thinks about all the hard missions he survived for the organization, using them to strengthen his resolve. He believes nothing could ever make him betray the group he values more than family. But when Yunqing uses her charm, he slips into a soft, dreamlike world. He finds himself lying in bed, confused, until he sees Yunqing sitting on top of him. With a tempting smile, she tells him to give her what she wants, and promises he'll get what he wants too. Back in reality, everyone is disturbed by the twisted look on the face of the man who was supposed to be unbreakable. Ignoring that for now, Yunchai asks where the drug is hidden. To his partner's shock, he blurts out that it's in Director Cha Genel's basement. Tian is stunned there was a basement at all. He worked there for years and never knew. Ryojiom then asks why they keep spreading such a dangerous drug when they already know its side effects. In a cold voice, the thug admits nearly every team except Tian's already knows about the operation. Worse, he says the main targets are children, even though the side effects hit them the hardest. Still, he claims he doesn't know why the drug is spreading so fast and says he's only doing it for the money. That makes Tian furious, and he moves to smash the guy's face in, but Yunchai stops him because she has another idea. Inside the dream, she gives the thug permission to smash her, and the idiot starts drooling. He has no idea he's actually on top of his own partner. While the guy goes crazy on top of him, Yunchai says this is way worse than just killing him. After that, Ryojame says it's time to start the mission. He sends Yunchai in disguised as the love-struck thug, with Tian staying behind to support her. The next day, Ryojame runs in to see Yoon at school, and casually reveals that he knows she's Choi Kyung's daughter. He still finds it hard to believe that guy stayed here long enough to have a daughter. He remembers how fiercely that man used to protect kids. Then Dula suddenly shows up and pulls Siyun away to get something to eat with her. The story moves to the gym, where he spends the rest of the day training Junho. Later that night, Tian guides Yunchai through the mission with a transmitter. From a distant rooftop, he tells her to act normal, like they aren't talking at all. He warns her to keep a low profile, but she tells him to relax. Yunchai says the place is completely quiet, so there's nobody around to worry about. Tian figures the higher-ups must be away on something important, which tracks. Then his face drops, and he urgently tells her not to turn around. Behind her stand the leaders of Teams 1 and 2. Tian quickly tells her to be respectful, and move aside for her seniors, still confused about why they're here so late. Just like that, the two leaders step into the elevator and ask why she isn't getting in. She says it's nothing, and calmly waits for the doors to shut. At the last second, Team 2's leader stops the door and grabs her transmitter. He asks why she has it when she isn't on a mission, and demands to know who she's speaking to. Feeling the heavy pressure coming off both leaders, Yunchai suddenly goes quiet. Tian freaks out and shouts for her to answer, but a moment later she tells him to relax, she's already in the basement. When she boldly says the team leaders were easy to handle, Tian warns that something feels very off. Down in the basement, she finds the room completely empty, with only the vents leading farther in. Complaining about how cramped they are, she crawls through and drops into the next room. Tian praises her, and says he'll let Ryu Gaem know, but she tells him to wait because what she found isn't pills or any drug supply. Tian goes still when Director Cha Genyeon Priam's voice suddenly comes through the comms. Smiling like he expected this, the director politely asks Yunchai who she is. He says he thought Daehin would come instead. Then Xiaobei Yunxiao leans toward the transmitter and admits he'd been suspicious of Daehin's reports for a long time. That's why he met Minguk for dinner one night and secretly took his phone. While Minguk stepped away from the table, he casually planted a virus on it. Daehin instantly understands the stash was never there, because the mission had been blown from the start. He asks Yun Xiaobei if she can get out on her own. In response, she calmly puts a hand on Xiaobei Yunxiao's chest and blasts him back with a powerful strike. As she pulls away, she tries to use her illusion on the director, but right before it lands, the team leaders she thought were down suddenly appear and cut off her escape. With both arms pinned, Team 1's leader gets ready to hit her hard enough to knock her out for good. Right then Daehin arrives and slams a roundhouse kick into the guy. He tells them it's pathetic to gang up on a woman like that. Then the director asks how Daehan figured out his hidden stash. Looking around, Daehan realizes they've already cleared out the whole supply. At the same time, the other team leaders inject themselves with the new drug. The director warns them to watch the girl as they start closing in. Daehan powers himself up with the old drug he still had, and tells Yoon Xiaobei their only goal now is escaping alive. With that, the team leaders rush them together at incredible speed, trying to kill Daehan and seize Yoon Xiaobei. The moment Daehan sees what they're doing, he throws himself in front of her, and stalls long enough for Yoon Xiaobei to blast both men away with her chi. Seeing her stop in a prayer pose, he asks why she can't just charm them, and make them take each other out. Annoyed, Yoon Xiao snaps that the charm spell burns through a huge amount of chi, so she needs time to recover after failing to use it on the director. Hearing that, he charges in to buy her time, but gets smashed back by a wooden staff to the stomach. The other leader doesn't let him recover, diving from above to crush his bones. But before the attack lands, the director tells both team leaders to stop, asking if they're really ready to kill a former member of the family. After sparing him, Xiaobei Yunxiao asks why Daehan betrayed him when they were like brothers. That pulls Daehan back to the days when Xiaobei Yunxiao helped him and Minguk through their worst times. He asks if Xiaobei Yunxiao even knows how much Minguk means to him. The director says he does. His little brother means everything to him. He even claims he sees Minguk as a younger brother too. Daehan explains that Minguk is in terrible shape because he once shared his pills. After seeing the side effects, he stopped giving them to him. But somehow, Minguk kept getting more, and Daehan says that's why he keeps getting worse. He says plainly that his brother is the only reason he came this far. At that, a sick smile spreads across Xiaobei Yunxiao's face. He admits he was the one giving Minguk those pills the whole time, and Daehan completely snaps. He drives a savage punch into the bastard's stomach, sending him flying into the wall. Both team leaders freeze at the sudden burst of power. Then they spot two empty injectors on the floor. When blood starts pouring from every opening in his body, Yunxing realizes in horror that he overdosed on the drug for a huge power boost and ruined his body in the process. Consumed by rage, Daehan demands to know if the two team leaders were part of it too. Instead of answering, the director kicks him hard and sends him crashing into the wall. With Daehan finally down, the director turns to Yunxing. Meanwhile, our guy is sprinting outside after getting Daehan's distress message. As Jae Yunxing's men dump Daehan off a bridge and take Yunxing away, Ryugeum races across the rooftops, pushing through the night as fast as he can. A little earlier, Ryugeum is at the National Intelligence Service Research Institute, keeping his promise to help with the research. When Daehan suddenly calls, Daehan sounds desperate, saying he's going to back up Yunxing and telling Ryugeum to come right away. Ryugeum instantly tenses up, realizing the organization may have uncovered their plan, and he rushes out at once. Back in the present, Ryugeum feels a familiar aura nearby and changes course. Meanwhile, Daehan keeps sinking lower, but refuses to give up, even as the water drags him down. As the seconds pass, a strange calm starts to wash over him, and just when his sight starts fading, he sees someone coming. For a second, he thinks it's his father, but it's actually Ryugeum. Ryugeum pulls him to safety. Catching his breath, Daehan thanks him and says he owes him again. Ryugeum asks what happened, and through ragged breaths, Daehan says Jae Yunxing appeared out of nowhere. He adds that Jae Yunxing is insanely strong and the group's second in command. Overcome with frustration, Daehan starts throwing wild punches in rage. Ryugeum lightly punches his stomach to snap him out of it and tells him to calm down before he wrecks himself. Daehan drops to the ground and starts crying, saying he trusted Jae Yunxing with everything. After he finally settles down, Ryugeum quietly asks about Yunxing. Daehan says he doesn't know what happened to her because he blacked out halfway through and apologizes for ruining the plan. Ryugeum stays calm and says they'll find another way through this mess. Meanwhile, Yunxing is taken to an unknown place. A doctor asks if she's comfortable, and she flatly says no. Jae Yunxing steps up and tells her to answer a few questions, and he'll let her go. When he asks why she helped Daehan, she firmly says she'd rather talk to the director than him. The doctor gives a creepy smile and says that was probably her plan all along, but it won't be that easy. He asks whether she shares some secret with the director, then says she's in luck because the boss just arrived. He quickly bows as Jongwon walks in. The fat boss laughs, saying he only stopped by for a drink, but it looks like they have a guest today. Jongwon waves the doctor out. Once they're alone, he sighs and says his subordinate can be annoying, though he does his job well enough. Yunxing agrees that the man is sharp. Jongwon then tells her not to hurt his subordinate, because he sees him as family, but before he can finish, an illusion flashes behind him. Yunxing moves at once, slipping behind him, but Jongwon reacts instantly and throws a heavy punch she barely avoids. The woman realizes the beast before her is exactly the same as he was back then, when he was called Choi Kyung. Jongwon straightens up and politely says he's adapted well to this time. Now he has a family, money, and power, and he says he owes it all to Yunwoo, who gave him this rich, peaceful life. She asks why he wasn't surprised to see her. Did he already know she was in this era too? Yeonwon pours another drink and says it isn't that shocking since he also ended up here somehow. Then he asks if Chokryo Dyum is here too, and whether she really betrayed Okyeon to stand with him. Yeonwoo keeps her cool and calls that nonsense. She says she only got close to Ryogyeom as part of a spy mission, adding that he's pretending to be manager for Dula, the girl Jeonwon has been looking for. Still, her nerves show, and sweat runs down her face. Leaning back, Jeonwon says that's big news, and asks if she told Okyeon yet. Yeonwoo smirks and calls him naive. Yeonwoo would be happier if they caught Ryugyeom first and reported it later. The beast just laughs at her. He asks if this little scheme is really just her trying to win back favor. Yeonwoo shoots back that he never used to avoid a fight. Yeonwoo chuckles and says he doesn't waste time on useless battles anymore. He adds that this meeting isn't part of Yeonwoo's plan, so it can wait until they're called again. Unlike his old life, he now has people and things he wants to protect. The story cuts to Soon, furious while waiting for her ride. She mutters that she'll fire the staff. She told them to come early so she wouldn't miss acting class. Just as she's about to call again, a hand lands on her shoulder. She turns, and a man covers her mouth and drags her off. Yeonwon hears the news while eating, and the second he learns his daughter was kidnapped, he explodes with rage, swearing to tear the culprit apart. An officer rushes in and says they found the kidnapper, a student named Ryu Ji-ye. Then the story jumps back to Jongwon's past, when he was Choi Kyung. A squad of soldiers had been sent to capture him, after branding him a criminal, and to kill the child in his arms. Kyung runs through the forest, carrying the little girl. She asks why he's throwing away his life and name for her, and the beast softly laughs, saying it's because she's cute. He tells her better days are coming. The soldiers stab him again and again, but then panic. They were ordered to keep him alive. Their leader shouts that attacks like this won't stop Kyung and orders the shield unit to move in. Holding the child tight, Kyung charges straight through them, smashing every defense line as shields break and men are thrown aside. One soldier thinks this is his chance and gets close enough to slash at Kyung's arm, but Kyung answers with a punch that snaps the sword in half. With that same fist, he slams the man into the ground hard enough to shake everyone nearby. Before he can recover, several soldiers rush in and throw ropes around him, finally restraining the beast. In the middle of the chaos, one of them grabs the child and beheads her right in front of Jeonwoo. As her body drops, Jeonwoo as go wide with rage and his aura erupts. His body shifts into full beast form, and the soldiers realize too late, they've unleashed something they can't control. Then the story returns to the present. The big man wakes from a dream beside Ji Yun-il and asks if the doctor found anything. The doctor says Ryugyeom and Daihan seem to be involved, and their real target may be the ampules. He tries to calm him, saying he'll take care of it himself, but the president says no, he'll handle it personally. Meanwhile, Security Team 3 comes to check on Daihan. They ask what happened to him, and complain their team is getting left out again. When they keep pressing him, they reach out a hand, but Daihan knocks it away and tells them to get lost. He feels bad inside, but acts harsh, calling them useless trash he can't count on. Really, he's trying to keep them out of danger. It works, and they leave offended. Once they're gone, Daihan lies back to rest. Then Ryugyeom shows up with the nerd Junho. Ryugyeom confirms Daihan's team is gone, and the three sit down to figure out where the drugs are hidden. They still can't reach Manhwa, and Ryugyeom warns them not to rush. Daihan says since the deal's stopped, the stash must be hidden somewhere secure. Then the nerd comes up with an idea. The president's daughter Shun might know something. Daihan says the kid's bolder than he looks, while Ryugyeom asks if he's seriously suggesting they kidnap her. Just then, Ryugyeom gets a call from Daiwola. She sounds panicked and says there's a huge problem and she needs him fast. Ryugyeom quickly asks if someone's attacking her, but she says it's even worse. Her friend Suyun has been kidnapped, and the one behind it is the bully Jae-il. The scene shifts to Jae-il showing an ampule to Suyun. He laughs, saying he never thought something this strong could stay hidden from the world. Suyun yells, demanding to know where she is and why he's doing this to her. Jae-il grabs her cheeks and tells her to stop acting. He says he already knows her father is the CEO of the pill factory. Then he pulls a blade and threatens to ruin her face if she doesn't talk. Right before he can hurt her, Daiwola rushes in and tackles the bully away, saving her friend. Jae-il flies into a rage and injects himself with the ampules when he sees Ryugyeom, Junho and Daihan arrive. Laughing like he's lost his mind, he says this time will be different, but before he can finish, Ryugyeom rushes in and grabs him by the throat. He squeezes and demands to know where Jae-il got all this information. Ryugyeom mocks him too, saying nothing looks different this time either. Jae-il blames everything on Ryugyeom and refuses to talk. Suddenly the door blasts open and sends the bully flying, as Jongwon walks in. The doctor follows and says they were right. Ryugyeom and his group are the kidnappers. The situation turns ugly fast, and Suron is still unconscious. Ryugyeom and Jongwon both release their chi, ready for a brutal clash. The ground shakes as Choi Kyu-young steps forward, his presence alone making the air feel heavy. Ryugyeom senses the power coming off him right away, and knows this man didn't come to talk. He immediately tells the others to run while they still can. Sure he can hold this off. Kyung lunges first, smashing his fist into the floor and cracking the concrete. Ryugam barely dodges, then gathers power for his silent tiger fist. Both strike at the same time, and their punches collide with a huge shockwave that tears through the station. Meanwhile, the other team bosses go after Daihan and the others, but stop cold when they see their own leader blasted into the ceiling like a balloon. Jung lands unharmed, and even angrier, while the pill doctor realizes Ryugam's hit wasn't meant to hurt him, it was to weaken the structure and bring the ceiling down so his teammates could escape. The second team boss quickly makes a call, while Jung turns to Gedali, telling him to get Seyun. He says he'll join him after dealing with Ryugam himself. Inside the speeding car, Seyun slowly wakes up, holding her head in pain. Tool gently tells her to think about what happened, and Seyun suddenly remembers that Tool saved her. She asks how Tool even found her. Jung-ho jumps in with a long dramatic explanation of everything, and all it does is leave her staring at him. Then it really hits her. Tula risked herself to save her after everything she'd done. Before she can say anything, Junho gets to the point and asks if she knows where the pills are. Daihan calmly says they need that information to save his brother. Do adds that the drug is very dangerous, and they don't want Seyun dragged into it either. Seyun looks out the window, softens, and admits the pills are probably hidden at her house, the safest place she can think of. A moment later, the car screeches to a stop outside her home. Daihan gets out first, only to find a crowd of goons waiting. He sighs and says even after driving like crazy, he's almost ashamed he was late. Youngli steps forward with a smirk and says they rushed to get there first too. Then he asks if Demlaharn really plans to fight all of them alone. Demlaharn flashes his usual cocky grin and says he'll take every last one of them himself, then injects another dose without hesitation. Xiaobao just yawns, and the fight erupts. Demlaharn charges in, trading blows and dropping several guys with ease. When one thug swings at him, Demlaharn blocks it and fires back with a heavy punch, shouting that he'll never lose to weaklings like them. But before he can breathe, 3 thugs rush him together and slam him hard enough to send him flying. Duel flinches, wondering how Daehan thought he could fight all of them alone. Seyun quietly says all they can do now is watch. Yunho's hands shake, but he decides he has to jump in. Before he can, a familiar voice cuts in, asking how a whole squad ganging up on one man is supposed to be fair. Everyone looks over and sees Daehan's team arriving to join the fight. Their leader starts shouting orders, and the clash turns into total chaos. Punches fly, and the air fills with yelling. The other teams can only stare at Team 3's power and teamwork. They can't believe a group like this is still ranked 3rd. Some even wonder what kind of leader made them this loyal. Team 3 soon realizes the enemy leaders are gone, and only a few fighters are left. Their leader tells Dadihan they'll open a path for him, and he nods, thanking them for showing up. The pill doctor watches with a small smile, surprised by how united Team 3 is, and even a little impressed by Daishan's leadership. Daishan then calls out to Jae Yunil, declaring that he won't lose this time. Taking it lightly, the doctor grins and says he'll make it fun, then shows the drugs he brought. With a smirk he jams a vial into his arm, ready to see how far this fight can go. Somewhere else, Ryugeum and Gyung keep trading blows hard enough to shake the place. Ryugeum slips just out of range, then dives back in to attack. As he moves, he says he's been thinking, and now gets how Kyung sees the people under him, trying to talk sense into him. Kyung says nothing, and blasts him away with a hit to the stomach. Ryugeum skids across the ground, while Kyung growls for him to die. Seeing words won't change anything, Ryugeum grabs an iron rod. He decides to end this fast, thinking that in this life and the last, Kyung has always trusted the wrong people too much. Dien uses his final vial, knowing this has to finish it. Jonin mocks him, asking if he's still holding up. Even with his whole body burning from the inside, Dien knows he can't stop now. He jumps in with a heavy punch, but the pill doctor easily slips aside. Dien throws a wide hook next, and Jonil dodges that too with a grin. Then the doctor finally goes on offense, and swings his own hook. Daihan raises his arms to block, but the hit never lands. He slowly opens his eyes, and sees Jonil standing there calmly. Jonil says he was only passing time, though this fight isn't fun for him at all. Then suddenly grabs Daihan and slams him into the ground. Daihan grits his teeth, gets up and asks what he means by killing time. The pill doctor leans in and says explaining it might be more fun. He tells Daihan that starting today, CK Shields is finished. All he needed was a distraction so he could steal every pill in the middle of the chaos, and everything happening now has been part of his plan. He goes on, saying he always knew their boss was different from the others, someone with huge strength even without drugs. He says he could never understand that, until one day he heard an interesting rumor, there was someone else just like him, and now even Chokri Gayam has that same trait. That gave him an idea, so he found a drug-crazy kid, and told him who really owned the pill company, setting the kidnapping in motion. Things moved even faster than he expected, because of Dula getting involved. After that, he purposely led their boss to the kidnapping site, and pinned it on Ryu Gayam. He says it never mattered who won that day, as long as the plan kept moving. Still trying to process it all, Dahan asks if that's why he gave the drug to his brother. Kyundae laughs and makes fun of him, saying he clearly wasn't listening. That part was never planned. He did it just because he felt like it. Same as how he's messing with Daihan now. That sends Daihan into a rage, and he charges again, but Kyungdale cuts across his body before he can react, slicing him several times. Daihan realizes the pill doctor is using tiger claws. He still rushes forward without fear, which only makes Kyungdale smile. Set on landing even one clean blow, Daihan keeps attacking, but every try ends with more cuts until he's covered in wounds. It's obvious now, Kyungdale is just playing with him as another deep slash lands. Daihan starts to lose focus and wonders if this is the end. Then his face changes. The frown turns into a grin, and in a flash he's behind Kyungdale, asking if the maniac had fun playing with him. He says he thought his old approach was the only way to win, then calls Kyungdale careless and drives in a brutal hook. Several ribs crack, and the doctor goes flying. Daihan had entered a state called Jungryeo, a calm meditation method Ryugeum once told him about in the car, where the body stops rushing and the mind becomes clear. Looking down at Jaeonil, Daehyun calmly asks if he ever wondered why their strength was different. This is the answer. The louder and more chaotic everything got around him, the deeper Daehyun sank into stillness. Then he stands and demands to know where the pills are. Outside, Duel notices several thugs leaving the building with briefcases, and wonders if the pills are inside. Junyo asks Yoon if that's really them, but she helplessly shakes her head and says she doesn't know what's in them or what to do anymore. Trembling, she says her father will be caught soon, and then she'll be alone again. Daehyun walks over, crushing a used vial underfoot, when Jaeonil suddenly jumps him from behind and slashes his stomach. The pill doctor smirks, and says Daehyun's last hit almost put him to sleep. Daehyun's eyes widen. His first strike wasn't enough, and now he's out of pills. Before he can move, Jaeonil grabs his shoulder and tells him to stop. Since they used to be friends, he says, Daehyun should let this go. Daehyun refuses, tackles him, and yells for him not to move. Jaeonil kicks him off and asks what was so special about his brother anyway. Daehyun rushes in again, but gets thrown back once more, as Jaeonil tells him he should value his own life over anyone else's. Daehyun forces himself up, clutching one of Jaeonil's new drugs with a faint smile on his face. Jaeonil stares at him in disbelief, and warns that dose will kill him on the spot. Daehyun doesn't hesitate. He drives the needle into his arm. Jaeonil's eyes go wide as Daehyun whispers that none of this matters, as long as his brother lives. Then the story shifts to the past, when Daehyun was only 9. Back then, he just wanted a normal, happy family. That dream broke when his parents divorced, after his father hurt his leg and couldn't work anymore. The court decided Daehyun would stay with his father, while Minguk would live with their mother. Minguk cried because he didn't want to be apart from his brother. Daehyun, meanwhile, was angry they couldn't be together anymore. But when he saw how broken their father had become, he hid his feelings, took Minguk's hand and with a big smile told him to stay happy. He knew their father could barely support even one child, so it was safer for his little brother to stay with their mom. One day at the park, Daehyun sat on a swing, wondering if Minguk had figured out the secret message he left. Soon enough, the smart little kid solved it and came to meet him there. The brothers kept secretly meeting for a whole week until they were finally caught. When that happened, their father harshly scolded Daehyun for meeting Minguk in secret. It was the first time Daehyun had ever seen him look that serious. After that, time passed, and Daehyun held on to his father's promise that Minguk was fine and living well, until one day he found his little brother waiting at their old spot. Daehyun ran over in a panic and demanded to know why he came. Minguk's face was bruised and swollen, but he just smiled and said Big Brother was too late this time. When Daehyun asked what happened, Minguk claimed he fell off the swing, but Daehyun knew that was a lie. It didn't take long to learn the truth. Their mother's new boyfriend was worthless and used Minguk like a punching bag. The very next day, Daehyun went straight to his mother's apartment and rang the bell. As soon as that gold digger opened the door, he rushed in, grabbed his brother, and ran as fast as he could. That night, they sat together planning where to go next, scared their dad would find them and send them to an orphanage. When he finally did catch up, Daehyun thought he was about to get badly beaten. Instead, their father pulled both boys into a tight hug and apologized for not being brave enough to protect Minguk. 2 months later, their father died from working himself to death. With nobody left, the brothers were sent to an orphanage. There, Daehyun swore he'd raise Minguk no matter what. Back in the present, Daehyun pours all those feelings into one punch that catches Jae-Yoon completely off guard. Even the fallen agents can't believe it as Daehyun suddenly starts matching the director head-on. While Jae-Yoon watches Daehyun go star platinum on him, he gets excited to see what happens when the old and new drug formulas mix. No matter how many hits he takes, Daehyun keeps pushing through and coming harder. By now it's obvious his body is falling apart second by second. After Daehyun kicks Jae-Yoon around like a football, the man wishes he could just wait until Daehyun burns out, but he knows he doesn't have that kind of time. Both fighters step back, then throw everything into one clash, creating a huge shockwave that sends Daehyun flying. The director smirks, thinking he won, annoyed that this stubborn big brother ruined his perfect outfit. But then his face twists in shock as Daehyun stands up again. Jae-Yoon angrily asks how long he plans to keep this up, and Daehyun makes it clear he won't stop until he dies. After that, the two keep trading punches back and forth, they keep trading blows, exhausted but too stubborn to stop. In the end, the director lands one solid hit and finally drops Danehan. He smugly says this was always his win, because the drug works perfectly with his body. But Danehan gets back up one last time and beats that smug bastard into the floor. He refuses to quit because of the promise he made to his father. Then his last punch cracks Jang Yunxing's jaw and knocks him out cold. Daehan drops beside him with a small, satisfied smile, glad he kept that promise until the very end. Somewhere else, Choi Kyu-young faces our boy. Rugeum rushes in with a steel bar, but the beast blocks it with his thick arms and throws him aside like it's nothing. Seeing that, Ryugeum switches it up and brings down a heavy overhead strike, using both his body weight and chi. The beast answers with his own chi and smashes him so hard he flies up into the ceiling. Watching from outside, Team 2's leader starts worrying the whole building will come down first. On the other side, another guy can't believe some random fighter is matching their boss. The beast avoids every one of Rugeum's attacks and looks disappointed that's all our boy has. Rugeum shuts him up with a clean backflip, snatches the steel bar in midair, and swings with enough force to crush the beast's head if he hadn't dodged. He keeps pressing, smashing all of Choi Kyung's key joints. Then he lands 2 quick slashes and decides to finish it. Outside, the team leaders start to panic, wondering who could stop Rugeum now but then the beast grabs him by the neck with both hands and drives him straight into the ground, asking if he really thought he was that weak. After that, Choi Kyung throws him into the wall, jumps up with chi-charged fists, and blasts Rugeum right in the core. It's insane how this huge monster can jump that high. The beast says flashy tricks don't matter against a man like him, someone who ends fights with one hit. Right after that, his knees give out, and he realizes age is catching up. Taking the chance, the team leaders rush the beast while he's weak. Huge mistake. He grabs their heads and smashes them into the ground, then charges his hands with chi and crushes them like watermelons. Just then, our boy steps out of the dust, and Choi Kyung realizes he only pretended to lose so the traitors would get wiped out. When Rugeum points out that all of Kyung's men betrayed him, the beast bursts into a mad laugh. He starts pounding the ground and hitting himself, saying they turned on him because he failed his family. When Rugeum hears him call himself unfit to lead a family or an organization, he quietly says he doesn't want to fight anymore. It's still his job to protect the organization. Rugeum shuts that down fast, drawing his lightning strike blade and cutting off the beast's hand. He tells the old man to rest, because he was always just Okyun's pawn, used and thrown away. That one line hits Choi Kyung like a truck. Rugeum adds that this illegal empire has gone on long enough, and now it ends. Meanwhile, Choi Kyung sinks into his memories, unable to accept that everyone he trusted had used him. Then his shoes tear apart, and our boy realizes the real battle is starting. Choi Kyung finally shows why they call him the Beast, roaring that no one will ever take what's precious to him again. Rugeum can hardly believe it. He'd heard Choi Kyung was called the Supreme Beast, but never thought the man would become an actual monster. The giant charges at him, and Rugeum braces to meet it head-on. Using his speed advantage, he slashes with his rod and cuts through the beast's left back muscle, thinking that side is open now. As he moves in for another hit, the creature heals at once and smashes him into the wall. Rugeum is shocked, unable to understand how it healed that fast. The monster charges again, but this time its punch hits the wall as Rugeum slips past and slices through its arm in one clean cut. He keeps trying to figure out how the beast regenerates so fast when his attacks clearly land. Then he realizes the arm he just cut off has already grown back. That's when Rugeum understands the real power of Choi Kyung's beast form. Not just crazy strength but terrifying regeneration that makes him almost impossible to kill. Then the beast uses a skill called Boar Charge and rushes forward like a wild boar. He leaps up and crashes down, trying to crush Rugeum under him. Rugeum blocks with his arms, but the impact shakes him to the core. Worse, he feels his strength fading. It's like he's trapped in an invisible box that's suppressing his energy and stopping his full power. He realizes there's no point trading hits if the beast just keeps healing, so he pours everything he has left into his weapon, feeding it energy until the rod bursts into flames. He's hoping fire can finally stop that insane healing. Calling it his final strike, Rugeum rushes in with everything to end it in one blow. At the same time, the nerd and Duel yell at the men stealing the ampules, telling them to bite, but their leader tells everyone to ignore the kids and keep loading the goods. From her car, Shon sees another armed group show up and wonders who they are. Back in the fight, the beast readies a final move. He jumps high and unleashes a technique called Gentle Wind Shatter, sending shockwaves strong enough to rip through the ground. Rusham takes it head-on and barely stays standing, coughing blood but refusing to drop. With his last bit of strength, he charges again and uses his own ultimate move, the Fireless Extinction Sword. His weapon erupts with scorching power, engulfing the beast and burning through him in mid-air. The regeneration finally stops, and as his body gives out, the beast accepts defeat. When it ends, Rusham tells him no one can protect something forever. He says even he couldn't. Living in this era taught him something important. Instead of trying to protect everyone himself, he should have taught the people he loved how to protect themselves. With a heavy heart, he admits he was wrong too. As the beast turns back into a human, he makes one last request before he dies. Choi Kyung asks Rusham to teach his daughter Sign how to protect herself, smiling faintly as his strength fades. Right then, someone else steps in, saying he already knew the beast would lose. From the shadows comes a man dragging the unconscious Jornil. The newcomer, a green-haired killer named Haji Hyun, is another of Akyun's loyal men, and he's clearly fine with bloodshed. The injured CEO looks at him nervously and asks what he did to the doctor. Ji-hyun smirks and says he promised the redhead a nice position if he stole the amp to his right. To him it was all just chess, and Ji-hyun was only a pawn. He admits things didn't end as planned, so now he's here to clean up himself. Ji-hyun says Okyun ordered the amp you had buried far from this world, and everyone tied to it has to die. Meanwhile, at the theft site, the new group has already beaten the thieves and taken the bags. As the focus shifts back, Ji-hyun swiftly cuts off the doctor's head, killing him instantly. He smirks and says the killing part was his own idea, then turns to Rusham and the president, and says they're next. The beast doesn't hesitate, and charges at the psycho, throwing a punch backed by 400 pounds of rage. Rusham stares in shock as the blow tears through the air, ripping through what looks like Ji-hyun's body. But the real Ji-hyun is untouched, already high in the air. He flips and lands smoothly while the beast drops to his knees, clutching the family he just lost. Ji-hyun mocks him for losing his mind over something so small, saying Okyun had already predicted the beast's weakness for his children. Laughing, he asks if Choi Hyung really thought he and Okyun were his true family. Then he turns to our guy with a dark grin, saying you always eat the tasty ones first. Then he bursts into wild laughter. Ji-hyun lunges forward, and the two clash head-on. Their aura and chi slam together and shake the air. For a second it looks even, but the psycho overpowers our guy. Ru Xiaobei can't believe it because from what he remembers this man was never this strong. He knows that with how drained he is now, he can't beat him. While Ru Xiaobei is thinking, the green-haired man vanishes and appears on his left, ready to smash him again. Our guy is sure he hears some kind of voice, and when he looks at the man's shoulder, he sees something glowing. He wonders if that light is the source of his crazy power, but no matter how fast he tries to react, his body won't move in time. Luckily, before the hit lands, the beast jumps in and slams the greenhead into the ground, pinning him there by force. The beast reminds our guy about his promise, and tells him to leave while he holds the psycho down. The psycho laughs and asks if the beast really thinks he can stop him. Choi Kyung quickly understands what's happening, and looks around until he spots a stack of gas cylinders and gets a desperate idea. He quietly apologizes to his daughter, grabs the greenhead by the collar and slams him into the tanks, causing a huge blast that swallows them both. At the same time, the nerd and Duel are boxed in by the men who just showed up. One of them grins and licks his lips, making his bad intentions toward the girl obvious. Junyo starts freaking out, not knowing who these men are. He also worries about Daihan and wonders if he should jump in. Then he takes off his glasses, shouts, and charges in with an attack that was never going to do much. Luckily, Ryugeum gets there first. He calmly says this will only take a second, and gets ready to handle all of them himself. He tells the other two to get somewhere safe. The men panic as soon as they realize this is Ryugeum, the same threat their boss Janel warned them about. They cannot believe he made it here. Back at the blast site, the president is badly burned on one side of his face, while the green-haired man only has minor scratches. What really sets him off isn't the pain, it's that his pricey clothes got wrecked. Later, Junho rushes back to the room where Ryugeum seems to be treating Dahan and his brother. He pours out such a huge amount of power that the force spreads through the whole area. Sweating hard, he says they can still be saved. Meanwhile, Duel tries to comfort her friend and hands her some water, but Sreen is clearly shaken after what Ryugeum told her about her father. Now that everyone should live, Junho is relieved they arrived in time. But our boy says that is not why they rushed here. Right then, someone pounds hard on the door, and no one knows who it is. Back at the warehouse, the boss arrives and sees Jai Hai on, and the wreck his underling made. Even in that awful condition, Chai Kyung asks how he could do this to him. Okyun stays cold, sits down, and asks what kind of bond they really had. The beast remembers when he was first brought in. Back then, Okyun said he needed his help, and wanted him in the family. The beast repeats that word, and Okyun says they were meant to be one family, until Choi Kyung chose another one he cared about more. The boss says everything gets messy when there are too many mouths to feed. He used the drug business to make endless money for his family, but that was never the real goal of the project. Then he changes the subject, and asks why the beast hid information about Ryugeum. Choi Kyung is stunned that his boss knows, and that only makes Okyun angrier. He snaps, asking if his men really think he's that stupid, then says one of them is already paying for that mistake, meaning Yunxing. Staring him down, he orders Choi Kyung to tell him everything he knows about Ryugeum. The pressure nearly crushes the beast, but he stays quiet to the very end. Okyun is clearly disappointed, so he stands and leaves, while Ji-hyun kills his former ally without a second thought. Okyun remembers seeing Ryugeum with the president, and starts thinking about his next move, now that Ryugeum has government support. Meanwhile, Our boy asks the president to let the newly orphaned girl stay in the fear. Noticing how crushed Sai Yuan looks, Dula says they can still live together if she wants. Sai Yuan is honestly touched by her kindness, but turns it down because she wants to learn how to stand on her own now. The director seems a bit worried about an aura farmer and a lonely girl living together while they're both so young, but our boy says it is fine because he'll be leaving soon on a long mission. The director freaks out since that was clearly not the deal, but Ryu Gaem tells him to relax. He plans to come back when it's over. Hearing that, the director turns to Papa President in tears, but the president quietly shuts him down. He says if Ryu Gaem promised to return, then they should trust him and give him any help he needs. That kind of respect is king level, and it earns a deep bow from Ryu Gaem, who has only bowed to his master before. Then the president asks where he is going. That makes him remember when Jaihu Gaeun showed up and said he came to clean up Choyang's mess. Back then, the beast said he still wasn't ready to face Okyun's men. Still, he mentioned there might be a hidden place somewhere in Baekdu-sain that could help him regain his old strength. The scene moves to our boy in the foggy forest near Baekdu-sain. He knows he can't fight a monster like Jaihu Gaeun as he is now. He also has to reach his peak if he wants to bring down Okyun next. As he goes deeper into the forest, he feels an icy wind coming from a huge opening at the foot of the mountain. When he walks inside, he is stunned by what he finds. In front of him stands a perfect copy of himself from 900 years ago. He looks it over carefully to make sure it really is his replica. He is certain this is what Choi Yun-shing wanted him to find, but it still feels like a trap. And sure enough, the second he reaches out to touch the clone, it fires off a killing blow that he barely avoids. He quickly shifts into his basic fist stance, but the clone copies it exactly. Our guy can't believe anyone else even knows that style, so he answers with a full power one flash fist, but the clone uses the exact same move against him and beats him with it. That leaves Ryu Gaem shocked. How can a copy overpower the original? The water under him starts freezing as the clone slowly walks closer. Then the clone's face begins to change, and our boy can only stare in shock as it becomes a face he hasn't seen in centuries. A long time ago, when he was still a child, he used to follow a wanderer with a huge sword. The man called himself the Nameless One, and Ryu Gaem knew right away he was no ordinary person after seeing him cut down a raging bear with perfect skill. That beast was infamous for killing 1,000 warriors. The Nameless One also saw something special in the boy and asked his name. From then on, he taught him every technique he knew. Once Ryu Gaem had learned all he could, the Nameless One vanished without a trace. Our boy never chased after him, because deep down he knew his master was beyond anything he could understand. He never thought he would see that man again, until now. Rujiom asks his master why he's here, and whether he's some kind of immortal, but the Nameless One only laughs and says, it isn't that special. He just moves through time more slowly than most people. He admits his body is getting weaker and fading away with every minute, but he still smiles, happy they met again. He remembers once saving a mighty round man, who looked like he could cosplay Kung Fu Panda. Their time together was short but fun, and they traded stories, including some about Rujiom. When the Nameless One met that big guy again, 900 years later, he had a feeling he would also meet his disciple once more. After hearing that, Rujiom asks why his master really came here. The Nameless One says it will still take a long time for him to recover his old power. Even so, he wonders why his disciple is so desperate to get stronger when he's already far beyond anyone alive today. Kneeling on the frozen ground, Rujiom says his mortal enemy woke before he did, and gained terrifying power. That's why he needs strength fast. Hearing that, the Nameless One smiles sadly, and says fate can be cruel. He then tells him an old prophecy about the one who will become the final wall against evil, trying to rule the world. He believes that's why he sensed something special in Rujiom. When they first met, his master tells him to stand, because he still has great faith in the disciple he trained. Meanwhile, in the dark room where Eunhai is being held, Okyun walks in. He complains that getting information on Rujiom is hard now that the government is shielding him. Seeing her confused look, he reveals he already knew she was working for Rujiom. He noticed Rujiom's chi still inside her back at the airport. Then, after the meeting with Choi Young, the fear in her eyes made it obvious she was scared of ending up like him. Suddenly, she remembers everything. She recalls being knocked out by his overwhelming energy. The memory terrifies her, because she has no idea how strong Okyun has become. As Okyun calmly asks one last time where Rujiom is, Jihyun enters, dragging the final body into the basement. Then he confirms her fear that the Choi Young she knew is gone for good. He drives his hand into the fresh corpse and says he was being merciful before, when he let Choi Yun keep his personality. This time, he has no plan to show that kind of mercy. He puts the beast's original heart into the new body, and Eunhai watches in horror as the flesh twists and reshapes into a living form. She recognizes it at once as the forbidden spell. Okyun admits that even he would suffer serious backlash from using it. Then, with a smile that chills her to the bone, he pats her head and tells her to be a good girl and wait for him to return. It seems he has something much more important to handle. The scene shifts to Daipuan and Minguk eating dinner together, with Big Brother trying to get him to eat. but Minguk won't touch the food, crushed by guilt over the greedy mistake he made. Daipon tells him to let it go and enjoy the meal he made. Minguk can't understand how his brother, who can barely fry an egg, somehow cooked something that looks this good. The real chef, it turns out, is our boy Junho. After dinner, Minguk finds out all this help came from Rujium. Rujium has been looking after the brothers, and that is why Dieton feels he owes him. A few hours earlier, Rujium asked Dieton to pay him back by finding where Yunhei is being held. While Dieton thinks about that, Minguk suddenly loses it. He yells, asking why Dieton keeps hiding things and what really happened to Big Bro Janol. Minguk wants the whole truth, and tells him to stop giving half answers. Dieton only gives a small smile and changes the topic, saying they'll be late for school if this keeps going. As they leave, Yunho looks back and asks if Dieton plans to head out for work after they're gone. He tells him to stay careful until Rujium comes back. The enemies they're dealing with now are far beyond the ones from before. And right then, Jae-yoon and his crew are heading out on a mission of their own. Elsewhere across the city, the famous actor Naim sits on a bed, checking headlines about his leaked dating scandal with actress Harry. He realizes his career is done, then looks at her when she asks if he's ready. Since everything is already ruined, he decides there's no point backing out now. In the shower, Naim hears the door open and freezes. He thinks it's just Harry messing with him, but instead of something sweet, a blade sinks into his back. Soon after, a thug drags him out, barely conscious, and brings him to Jae-hyun. Jae-hyun tells the actor to keep quiet unless he wants another hole in his body. Then he sets down a strange buzzing device and asks what kind of sick stuff Nam is into. Nam swears he would never use anything like that, but Jae-hyun cuts into his thigh and tells him to follow the script. After they finish recording the blackmail video, Jae-hyun orders him to stay off social media for the next 5 months. More than that, he tells Nam to turn down the biggest role of his life, because it already belongs to someone else. Later, Jae-hyun's crew praises him for taking out all the rival actors himself, which leaves the best roles open for Yoonwoo. Still, some wonder why he's still going after more people when Yoonwoo is already on top. Jae-hyun smirks and says the boss wants the plan to start only after Yoonwoo becomes the best. Then he notices one of his men is gone, and another thug says he went to escort Yoonhei. With Yoonhei, the blonde enforcer impatiently tells her to move, but she stays frozen, still trying to process that someone really brought a dead person back as a clone. Okian once said that spell works best right after death. That thought terrifies Yoonhei. What if they plan to keep her locked up until she dies, then turn her into an obedient copy? She remembers all the times she bowed her head and obeyed, just to stay alive. But now something breaks inside her, and she suddenly stops. The guard asks what's wrong. A second later, her illusion drops, and the real Yoonhei drives a kick into his chest, sending him flying. She refuses to die as anyone's puppet, so she smashes her handcuffs into his face again and again. Then to end it, she uses her strongest illusion and knocks him out cold. Breathing hard, she sees his phone on the floor and barely manages to send a short message before her strength gives out. Right then, Ji-hoon strikes her from behind, amused that this feisty girl took down one of his men. As she falls to the floor, Yoonhei prays her message gets through in time. Somewhere else, Dan checks his phone. A new message from an unknown number confuses him. It only has 2 words, Ye Yeonwoo. Dan wonders if it really came from Yeonhee, and if so, why the message is so vague. As he thinks about calling back, his phone suddenly lights. He answers carefully, but all he hears is mocking laughter. Jae-yoon thought he was calling Ryugeum, and starts mocking him for hiding like a coward. Dan Shaone stays silent, but Jae-yoon somehow realizes this isn't Ryugeum on the other end. Even so, he says to come find him in a week if he wants Yoonhee alive. The next day, Dan Shaom spends all his time trying to figure out who Yeonwoo is, but nothing fits, no matter how much he thinks about it. Tired and annoyed, he wonders if Yoonhee named Yeonwoo because that person is the one keeping her. Then he remembers Ji-yoon's rough voice and starts to think, all of this is tied together, so he decides to stop wasting time. He needs to get close to Yeonwoo and learn what's really going on. Then a headline catches his eye. Yeonwoo has suddenly been cast as a lead actor, and the timing feels way too suspicious. So Dan heads to the now empty Shielder office. The role Yeonwoo got used to belonged to Nam, a former client who once hired the company for protection. Dan breaks into the CEO's office and stops at the sight of shelves packed with files. Before he can decide where to begin, a flashlight shines right in his face. Luckily, it's one of his old men, the super loyal gangster from his squad. The two of them start going through the records together. Tian feels a little proud that his guys still show up when he needs them. The tough gangster says he came for his own reasons, but admits he's glad to see his boss again. After a while, Tian finds what he needs, Nam's private contact info. He sets up a meeting, but Nam flat out refuses to talk. Terrified, he warns that the people who attacked him are way too dangerous. Tian plays it smart, and makes him think the CK Shielders will back him up if things go bad. He holds out his card, and Nam almost reaches for it, but then the memories hit him again. He says he can't do it. Those bastards already forced him into a disgusting video that could destroy his career. Dan-hyun realizes the usual pressure won't work on this kid, so he changes tactics. Remembering there was also an actress in the scandal, he casually asks if she's safe. He expected some reaction, but just hearing Harry's name makes Nam break down. A few days later, the final day of Ji-yoon's one-week deadline arrives. He mocks Yoon-hee, asking if she really believed anyone would come save someone as useless as her. With a twisted grin, he says she'll get to say goodbye to their severed heads before he's done with her. That sick talk only makes her angrier, and Ji-yoon enjoys it, saying he loves the face she's making. He adds that he was surprised half of the 4 men who swore loyalty to betrayed him so easily. Then his phone rings. One of his men reports a problem. Nam is live streaming that he's taking the lead role again, and the news shocks the fans. At the same time, the kid in the pink hoodie is panicking, realizing he just streamed his exact location like Dan told him to. Nam nervously asks if those freaks really won't release his tape. Dan just shrugs and says that was the risk he chose to take for his girlfriend's sake. The only thing Dan promises is that he'll make the sick bastards behind this regret it for the rest of their lives. Back with Ji-yoon, he orders his men to move and find that little rat fast. A subordinate says they've already sent their fastest guy. When that man finally catches up to the pink hoodie kid, he calmly asks what he's trying to do. But the so-called kid answers in a deep voice that he was getting tired of waiting. It isn't Nam at all, it's Dahan. The man demands to know who he really is, but Dahan is already putting the pieces together between Yeonyu and this gang. He realizes this guy is one of the people doing their dirty work. Yeonyu's message also backs up his guess that the same group took her. Without wasting words, the thug orders Dahan to tell him where Nam is. The bastard even figures out the real actor is probably watching nearby. Over the phone, Nam says this guy is only a lower thug. The one holding his confession tape is higher up. So Dohan tells him to take him straight to the boss. To his surprise, the man walks right past him and says to follow. Watching from a corner, Nam stares in shock as the man suddenly vanishes into thin air, then appears right behind him. Dohan cuts in just in time and stops Nam from being taken. His kick sends the psycho flying into the water. That gives Nam the chance to run and hide. From that one kick, Daehan can already tell this guy is no joke. Sure enough, the maniac bursts back out of the water, angry that Daehan landed a hit. Meanwhile, Ryujium's master suddenly tells him to follow. With each step, everything around him starts to change, until he's walking through a world made from his own memories. His master gives him one simple task: reach the other side of the valley. Ryujium walks through the shallow water, and feels something strangely familiar. The place and even the smell awaken old memories. Then he spots some old friends gathered together and wonders how they got here. They look confused by the question and tell him it's dinner time after training. Then women from his mistress's clan bring food for the warriors, and the group rushes over excitedly. Seeing it all makes him smile a little, and for the first time in a long while he's truly happy to see everyone alive. Then comes the final hit to his softening heart. His mistress appears and pulls him into a tight hug, gently telling him it's time to go home. He drops to his knees, just like his master expected. This was clearly the hardest test for him, but it also clears his head. He finally sees that clinging to the past is what held him back all this time. His master watches in silence, waiting to see what he chooses. Without even pausing, the aura farmer lets go of everything he loves most to chase a better future, and one where he can beat Okeon. Speaking of Okeon, the boss calls Ji-hyun Ian for dinner, but when Ji-hyun thanks him for the meal, Okeon asks, dead serious, who said he could eat? Ji-hyun quickly apologizes for overstepping, and Okeon laughs, saying he was only messing with him. Ji-hyun Ian then says the actor kid situation is still under control, and there's plenty of time before filming starts. Okeon still doesn't buy it. Then his secretary cuts in and assures him that even if this unreliable idiot fails, she already has a backup ready. Ji-hyun clenches his jaw after manager Shim Ga-young mouths off about him again. Still, Okeon orders him to handle it with the $50 billion budget he was given. Ju-yo-hei, On leaves and calls Yong-sung, demanding to know what's taking so long. At that moment, Yong-sung is pinning Daehan to a pole, saying things were going fine until this little cutie got in the way. The second his guard drops, Daehan drives a sharp punch into his ribs and blasts him into the wall. But the freak barely reacts. Over the phone, Ji-hae-on snaps at him to quit fooling around and finish it. So Yong-sung rips off his shirt, showing his huge arms and the strange rings in his body, saying it's time to fight Okie-on style. Daehan just looks at him, confused, like the guy's trying way too hard. Then Yong-sung suddenly charges, grabs Daehan by the face, and smashes him into the ground with terrifying force. The reason is simple. Yong-sung's body was altered in some underground lab by a bunch of shady surgeons. Their director told them to pack his body with implants that boost control over his joints and muscles. That gave him crazy physical power, about 100 times beyond a normal person. They even gave the implants a fancy name, Servio joints. Yong-sung looks pleased. The output is even better than he expected. Hearing that brutal impact, Nem starts to wonder if Daehan got crushed. But let's be real, Big Brother isn't that easy to kill. Daehan mocks him for depending on machine parts like a sad little weapon. Though the truth is he only lived by using the steel body technique at the last second. So no, Daehan didn't come into this blind. Earlier, while searching for Nem's number, he found a hidden safe behind a bookshelf. Inside was an old martial arts manual. Back in the present, he sends Yongsung flying with monstrous power and reveals he spent the last 5 days mastering techniques before Yunhei's deadline ran out. The bloody boar fist is only one of the arts he picked up. Then we shift to our boy at the site of his second trial, beside his master. The instant his master touches his chest, he's sent into a huge empty sky. Looking around in confusion, he sees an island split into 3 connected landmasses, and his master explains, this is where chi chains link heaven and earth. Put simply, it's a freezing place where chi and martial power are heavily suppressed. Time moves painfully slow here, but the monsters living in it are not slow at all. The only way Rujiom can survive is with the sword he's been given. The moment he grabs it, ice crawls over his hand. His master explains that his mind may be ready, but his body still isn't complete. Right away, crushing pressure falls on him, and even moving forward becomes a brutal fight. The cold pounds his body and mind at the same time. The beasts don't care one bit, so he rushes them, determined to kill them before his body gives out. Back with Daihan, he's trading blow for blow with Yongsung, using every martial art he learned to keep up. After a while, Yongsung realizes raw power alone won't beat him, so he switches to speed, but that fails too. Daihan finally gets fed up and yells at him to stop dragging this fight out. Fueled by adrenaline, Yongsung runs through every move he can think of, trying to find a way to put him down. That's when he notices Daihan was never throwing wild punches. From the start, Big Brother had been aiming for his leg joints. Yongsung actually smiles, impressed by the plan. Sure, he's figured everything out. He smugly invites Daihan to try one final hit on him. Running on his last bit of strength, Daihan puts everything into the next strike. As soon as he gets close, Yongsung declares checkmate and slams Daihan's head toward the ground, or so he thinks. He's still wondering why Daihan didn't target his legs again, when a hand grabs his face from behind. For a brief moment, Daihan warns him he's about to feel the technique that crushes mountains. When it lands, the impact caves in. Yongsung's skull and blood bursts from both ears. Even then, the monster stays on his feet, saying he won't fall so easily, as he throws one last swing, but his balance is gone and he drops on the spot. Daihan says this was the plan from the start. Then he grabs the half-conscious brute and dives into the water below. Back at HQ, Ji-yoon's crew is getting annoyed. Yongsung should have reported in by now, especially since he's their fastest. One of them warns the others to watch themselves because the boss is coming back in a terrible mood. Then the blonde guy pauses, saying he thought he saw something flash outside the window. He brushes it off after all. Who would be crazy enough to break into Yeonwoo's private villa, the place Ji-yoon's crew is using for now? Down in the basement, Yoonji freezes when she hears someone calling from the other side of the door. Outside, Daihan arrives just before the 1-week deadline ends. Meanwhile, in the other world, our boy keeps fighting endless waves of monsters. Each hour there equals a full year on Earth, and with his bones breaking and muscles tearing, only pure survival instinct keeps Ryugim alive. After what feels like forever, he kills the last monster in the area, with nothing but his sword. He looks up and declares that he's ready to have his vessel judged again. But when nothing happens, he wonders if he missed something. Then the ground under him turns to water, and he suddenly falls off the floating island. He slams onto another island, mostly covered in water, sinking deep under it, and hoping this isn't the final trial right after the second. Back to Daehan, he rips open the basement lock with his bare hands. He can't help wondering whether Yunche even matters to the kidnappers, since they left her tied up alone without a single guard. Then he sees something he never expected. Yunche hurriedly claims she wasn't crying, even though her face says otherwise. Putting that aside, Daehan quickly moves to get her out. He knows neither of them has enough strength left for another fight with Ji-yoon Shing's men. But just as they reach the exit, Ji-yoon appears behind them out of nowhere. Daehan immediately pulls back and demands to know who he is. Before he can say more, Yunche cuts in and offers to serve Jang-yoon if he'll spare Daehan. Hearing that, Jang-yoon agrees way too easily and tells Daehan he can leave. What he doesn't say is that a squad of modified humans is closing in from behind. Daehan refuses to run and braces for one final stand, but a single uppercut launches him into the air. As he barely gets back up after the hit, Jang-yoon tells his man to finish him off for good. The blonde thug rushes in, ready to cave Daehan's head in with a crowbar. But at the last second, Minguk and Junho burst through the wall like heroes. Minguk throws Daehan over his shoulder and admits they followed him the whole way. Jae-yoon's men charge the intruders for barging onto their turf, but one quick strike from the nerd sends them flying. The guy in the cap just stares, unable to believe this kid is using master-level martial arts. He has no idea Ryu trained Junfeng to Junho for moments like this, with the blood flash fist. When Junho first tested it and blew out a wall, our boy told him it would hit even harder once mastered. The downside is brutal. It burns a huge amount of chi, and hurts like hell. Junho once asked how many times he could use it, and the answer was 2 at most. Now that he's already used it twice, Junho can feel his strength fading, but he knows there's no other option. Seeing him take his stance, Minguk can't believe he's really about to do this. As Junho prepares his ultimate move, the cap guy gets ready for the hit, and instead, Junho pulls out pepper spray, blasts the thugs in the face, and runs for his life. Jae-yoon's gang howls in pain, and the boss watches with clear disappointment as Eun-hye and the others race for the exit. Junho yells for everyone to keep running and not look back, but Jae-yoon's gang recovers fast and tackles all of them. The cap guy is furious they made them look like clowns, while the others are ready to smash their heads in. But Jae-yoon suddenly kicks his own men off the hostages, and the last thing they see is their boss flying straight at them. After beating his own team into the ground, Jae-yoon says he regrets wasting millions in technology on useless trash. Since the implants can still be recovered, the psycho says he'll dispose of them himself, for the unforgivable crime of disturbing his peace. At that, Mingguk and Daehan freeze in fear, while Eun-hye watches him drop toward her like death itself. With every implant pushed to the limit, Jae-yoon unleashes a violent blast that almost tears the whole building apart. But when nothing happens, the boss just stands there in disbelief. Then a voice echoes through the room, praising them for lasting this long. The King of Aura is back, and he tells his friends to hang on a little longer. He'll end